Let's see.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you. Can you hear me?
Yep. Perfect.
All right. I think we are live. Jason, you got me there?
I can hear you.
Let's see. Perfect. It is time to have some fun. Bang, bang, bang. What's up, dude?
I'm just ready to drink. I'm really impressed with the last 20 minutes. You guys are like your own IT team over in the Pompliano residence.
Joe Clocus is all over it. Let me just tweet this out real quick. We are live streaming for a few hours to celebrate the third Bitcoin halving. Come join me at Jason. And what you want to do? Sponsors real quick.
Yeah, hit it.
Tell them about BlockFi first while we're waiting for people to get in here.
Yeah, I tweeted out a link earlier to BlockFi. They've got a pretty cool promotion, but again, if you're looking to get your money making some money, your crypto making some money, I think it's a great opportunity to send Bitcoin, buy a stable coin, and collect interest on that. They also have some really cool lending features, and they're generally a good group of people. Historically, I've been super frustrated with customer service, with alternatives, and it's really good to have such an interactive, thoughtful team. You can get 8.6% APY on your stable tokens, and gosh, I think they're paying 5% plus on Bitcoin right now.
Yeah, I think
which is really interesting.
5 or 6%, and then also like 8.6% on the
USD or
USD.
other. That's right. Yeah, it's really. I think it's a great deal.
For sure. And then the other sponsor is Gemini. They offer industry-leading suite of crypto-native products, advanced trading tools for individuals and institutions. They enable you to buy, sell, and store cryptocurrency with world-class security, compliance, and customer experience. They're a licensed digital asset exchange and qualified custodian, New York trust company regulated by the New York State Department of Financial Services. It's about giving you greater choice, independence, and opportunity. They are here to serve your journey. I just think it's cool that both Gemini and BlockFi are they're focused on the most important thing, which is trust through security, right?
Yeah, I've kind of taken a multi-company approach to this whole, like, how do you deal in cryptocurrency? And it's been difficult to just use one. So using like Gemini has some features that BlockFi doesn't have. If you want to put limit orders in, put stop losses in, stack orders in, Gemini's really, really cool. I use them for an on and off ramp personally. And then BlockFi has these interest-bearing options, different suite of crypto assets that you can play around with. And if you don't want to sell your crypto and need a loan, they can do that too. So, there's an interesting approach to use both of these companies. Yeah.
All right. We are probably an hour and a half, 2 hours away from the halving?
No, man. I think we're 9 blocks away. And
really?
About an hour away. Yeah, it seems to be moving really quick. So, hey, I'm sorry to all those who were trying to link up with us that were kind of panicking that we were going to miss the halving, but I think we're here. So
we are definitely here. Maybe talk a little bit for those that don't know. Let's start with just your background and stuff, so that then people know who you are.
You go first. My whole intention today was to interview you. Like I don't think there's been hold on a second. I don't think there's actually been an interview that kind of figured out who you were, what you've done. So I'd rather kind of hear a little bit about you, your background, your family. Let's get a little personal today.
We are not doing that.
How did we get the name Anthony Pompliano?
No.
Come on.
Though. People don't know who you are. Tell them a little bit about your background first.
My name is Jason Williams. I'm one of the 3 general partners over at Morgan Creek Digital. Before that, I practiced medicine for about 20 years, actually, as a physician assistant. For those that don't know what that is, it was born out of kind of naval corpsmen coming back from Vietnam back in the 70s. they couldn't transition into private practice. So Duke University started a program for transitioning these ex-military guys into the civilian world. So they're really capable, dependent practitioners as a part of a multidisciplinary healthcare team. When I was at Methodist, they started a PA program. I was accepted, finished the program, went off to Yale. And while I was at Yale, came up with the idea for a company called FastMed, which is just urgent cares, but this is back in 2001. I ended up dropping out of my, my residency and building that company over a 14-year period into the nation's second largest urgent care and primary care practice. We were doing like 1.5 million patient visits a year, had 1,400 employees. It was really my whole adult life's work up until that point. And I sold the company in 2015 for about $500 million. So it was transformational in terms of my own kind of progression from a bootstrapping entrepreneur to someone working in a private equity venture-backed situation, reporting to a board, and then having a big exit. So, and that's when I met you.
Yeah. I feel like in that process, sorry, I just sent an email, I think, to everyone on the list. Hopefully they all got it. We'll see here. But as part of that process, like, what were some of the things that you learned that you think apply to Bitcoin? Like, I know we've talked a bunch about just managing people in a centralized corporation, how hard that is, and hiring and firing and all this stuff. And then you've got this thing, Bitcoin, that's completely decentralized, takes none of that into account, but still has grown into a $170 billion asset. Like, how do you think about the difference there?
Yeah, it's fun to explore how Bitcoin, if you look at it as a business, it's like the perfect business. It doesn't really have any employees. It grows with this virality, and it has all of these business type segments or parts to it. Like, it has this marketing team that it doesn't pay, and it's got this like this kind of monetary policy that doesn't have a CFO or some type of a board engaging it. It's all kind of run by an algorithm, and this thing is just growing like crazy. On top of that, you've got all these businesses that are trying to build on top of blockchains and develop innovation over these simple concepts of, you know, a triple entry ledger, accounting system, smart contracts, et cetera. And here we are with this this kind of next level internet where you're going to be able to transact in a very interesting way.
Yeah, it's going to be, I think, interesting to see if more companies start to do this in the future, right? In terms of, are there ways to build decentralized organizations? Are there ways to have anonymous or pseudonymous founders? It just feels like all of that stuff is now coming to the forefront. Bitcoin may be the only one to ever do it, or maybe other people will be able to. I don't know.
There's some concepts that have come out that I've just not agreed with, and they've been pretty popular. I mean, the Airbnb marketing stuff, like I forget, what was it, book, blitzscaling?
Yeah. Why?
No, just
LinkedIn.
Oh yeah. Linked. I just hated the concept, and I hope that if anyone's listening, maybe you could, you know, challenge this. But, you know, literally scaling at all costs, not following up with customers, not listening to customers, because the viral expedited growth process, leaving customers in a ditch, not answering any customer service, like complaints or issues, just because growth at all costs is the new strategy. I just hate it. You know, and I know that that's not been the issue with Airbnb right now, but I wondered if, you know, if without this economic kind of shutdown and the pandemic, would a problem showed itself with that strategy?
Yeah. I mean, look, at the end of the day, we don't know, I think, is the short answer. But at the same time, it's a business that focuses on scale, right? And then kind of says, we'll clean it up later. Like Coinbase did it, right? They very much, at one point, they had hundreds of thousands of customer tickets, I think, right? Or
yeah, and Coinbase breaks.
It is true. I mean, they go down whenever there's big spikes.
Yeah,
Sure.
I have an over and under whether Coinbase breaks during the halving, like at the halving.
Okay.
I mean, it's just wild. It reminds me of like the early days, like 2015, 2016. Anytime you wanted to trade, if there was any real volume, the exchanges would be down.
Yeah, they just can't handle it technically.
Mm-hmm. I'm just surprised at this stage, this many years down the road, that that Coinbase is still having this issue.
Yeah, well, I think part of it too. And hold on, before I forget, leave comments, and we'll try to answer as many questions as we can. Also, I was told, like the video, smash the like button so that more people on YouTube get this, and then subscribe to the channel. I'm supposed to say that periodically, along with talking about our sponsors. So don't forget to do that stuff. But I do wonder how much of this stuff is technological solutions, meaning like we actually don't have the technology in place, versus just it takes time to build things that can handle that type of volume, right? Like we've seen it outside of crypto as well. Like Robinhood went down on a day where there was tons of volume in the stock market. And it's just, you know, how much is time dependent, right? In terms of being able to actually handle that type of volume.
Maybe my expectations are unrealistic. I mean, going back to when I tried to buy Facebook during their IPO, I mean, it broke. And I got caught on the wrong side of the New York Stock Exchange going down, NASDAQ or New York Stock Exchange. And when it turned back on, it like filled an order that totally sucked for me. And I was part of a class action lawsuit against Facebook and got paid like $2.11 for literally, dude, seriously, if I would have got the trade I wanted, it would have been worth millions of dollars. It just totally sucked. But this stuff happens all the time.
Of course. All right, I'm looking at comments here, questions. Let me address a couple of things real quick. One, Polina is in the other room. She'll come over here in a little bit and come say hey. So everyone leave her alone. Two, I'm not eating pizza at the moment. I have pepperoni and cheese, and I've got some chicken nuggets, but pizza may or may not be on the way. And I don't know what Jason is eating or drinking. He'll tell us here. He's got Miller Lite.
Yeah, that's it.
And what's going on with the facial hair? There's questions about this ridiculous Fu Manchu that you've got going on.
No, man, I mean, I saw Mike Novogratz on TV. I mean, his mustache was glorious. I mean, he just looked like an absolute savage to me, a leader of men. And I was like, I can grow a mustache. And so I thought I would do this for this event, and I'm rocking the Fu Manchu. But unfortunately, I had a pretty important call before this video call, so everyone got to see this ridiculous facial hair on that call. I'm sure Mark Yusko is going to be happy about that.
Polina just poked her head out and just started laughing because she heard me talking about your facial hair. So
you know, I've seen a photo of you with something like this.
I at one point grew a massive beard.
Yeah.
And I cut it off in stages. I think I went, was it goatee, but really long. Then I cut it into the Fu Manchu, and then I went mustache, but the mustache, I had it so that it would curl at the end.
Right.
Which was
classic.
That lasted for about 24 hours. Then I realized I had to go to work the next day. So
I think anyone that grows a pretty good beard and decides to cut it goes through that whole evolution, you know, 70s porn stash, Fu Manchu, giant sideburns, you know, it's just, it's how you take it down.
I love it.
Speaking of taking down, are you watching the Bitcoin price?
Yeah, what's going on? I'm not looking at it at the moment.
Yeah, it looks like it's turned around. So I'm looking at the 4-hour chart.
8,600.
Well, the 4-hour chart today had a high of 91.86, but now it's at 85.64. So this is interesting. It's pretty down. So I wonder, it's down about 3.78% so far today. What's your feeling about Bitcoin's price going into the halving? I mean, dude, and just to give some context here, Pomp and I would literally watch Bitcoin just like we're doing it now with you at Starbucks or Dunks, like all day long. Like I can look at these candles and go from like the 5 minute to the 4 hour candle all day. Like
I got to tell a story. So it's 2000 and it's probably, no, a little later, probably 2017. This is right when I think in 17, if I remember correctly, Ether went from $10 at the start of the year, jumped to 30 by like March. And by May, it was at like $100. Like it was, here we go. Right.
And we have been mining.
Yeah.
Mining Ethereum.
And I remember we were sitting at Starbucks off of, I don't know, somewhere in Raleigh.
Strickland.
And you had on the construction vest. And we're sitting there. We had our computers out. And we had the charts up. We were just like, what the hell is happening, basically? And we just couldn't believe what was going on. And people were walking by to get coffee. And they were like, those guys are ridiculous or crazy or both. Like they literally did not understand what was going on because of how we were dressed, that we had the computers up, charts up, like all this stuff. And I remember like, then we would have people that we knew come stop by. So like guys like Jim Price, like all these people would come and stop by. And we were just like, wait a minute, are they like, is this their office?
It was ridiculous. And then random people would come up to us and say, hey, could you give us some investment advice? You know, I'm interested in, you're dressed like this. I'm in a reflective vest and we're giving people tips on early stage venture and crypto. No, it was really a lot of fun. Not much has changed though, to be honest. We're still kind of working in the similar environment.
Of course. People are asking, let's get this out of the way, about your jerseys in the background. They want to know what jerseys are.
Yeah, so I'm a huge Manchester United fan. So there's a Solskjaer jersey. He's the coach for Manchester United, signed. That was a gift from a friend in real life and on crypto. And then the number 7 there is Eric Cantona. So I fell in love with him when I saw him jump into the stands and kick a fan who was heckling him during a game. I just thought that was the wildest thing I've ever seen. And then I've got another Manchester United jersey over here that's signed by a bunch of teams, a bunch of the players. So yeah, I'm a big soccer fan. Dad's from Manchester, England. My mom's Sicilian. I played semi-pro soccer in South America. Pomp's come and seen me play before. I'm the king of the over 30 league.
Yeah, that is true. Jason is still athletic for
being old.
Nah, he's not old.
Yeah, but you just got to be faster and crazier than everybody.
You know when you're a kid and you think that like, man, 20's old. Then you get to 20 and you're like, man, 40's old. And then you get to 40 and I'm sure you're like 70's old, right? Right? It's all relative.
Yeah, but look, if you take care of yourself, you can still, do the things that you want to do. And I love playing soccer and screwing around. So I'm going to try to do it every day if I can. Yeah.
People are asking what we actually think the halving is going to do. So maybe let's start with the short-term price prediction. And then we can talk about the longer term implications. But what's your general idea on what's going to happen short term?
You go first.
Short term, I think that there's probably little effect, if anything at all. If there is movement, it might be down a little bit just from people selling after speculating. But I generally think that it's just going to go sideways for a while. And in hindsight will be a relative non-event. I do not believe that it's going to run up, right? So I'm kind of have the highest conviction it won't go up. Second highest conviction will just go sideways. And then third is there might be a little bit of downward price pressure.
Do you trade?
No.
I mean, I think these are, and look, I catch a lot of heat for posting trades and stuff online. I just think that's absolutely ridiculous. And, some dudes are like, you're going to get kneecapped or mugged and stuff. Just think about what you're saying. Every day, Warren Buffett or someone goes on TV and says, I just bought 10% of American Airlines or the whole airline industry. People don't rob him at that point. When Tim Draper bought 30,000 Bitcoin for $18 million from the feds, people didn't mug him for his Bitcoin. So I'm doing this because I really don't like when people play this game of I'm doing this, I'm selling that, I'm buying that. You don't know what these guys are actually doing. So for me, when I say I'm buying Bitcoin and I bought 2 Bitcoin or 5 Bitcoin or 10 Bitcoin, I'm just saying, look, I'm really doing this. I'm really putting my money at work. So, you know, how do I feel this Bitcoin like reward halving countdown thing is going to affect the price? I've been pretty vocal about the fact that I'm surprised it's at the price it is right now. I actually thought about kind of a pre-halving pump, and maybe that's what this is. And then, you know, I've been really focused on minor capitulation because I think that's real pump. And I think after the halving, the strong hands in mining are going to absolutely decimate those that are trying to hang on in any way and really try to clear them out so they get maximum reward for each block. So this is going to be interesting. I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on the price of Bitcoin and a real opportunity if you have a low time preference to put money at work. And I've been waiting. I've been waiting to do that.
So explain minor capitulation. There's a lot of people who probably don't understand what that is. What do you think is the best way to describe that?
Yeah, so mining is very, very expensive. You have a operational expense that you have to secure in the form of power. Depending on where you are in the world, power could be anywhere from 2 cents, 1 cent, 5, 6 cents a kilowatt hour. Then you have to commit to your hardware. So to mine Bitcoin, you use ASIC miners, and those are expensive right now for S17s, S19. S19s probably cost $2,000 to $3,000 depending on the amount you're buying each. You've got to deploy them in an environment that's stable. So the best in the world have almost like tier 3, tier 2 data centers that they're putting these miners in, and they're managing the heat and power in a very formulaic way. And they're getting tremendous efficiencies. But those who are kind of speculating around the periphery, and I call them kind of chicken coop miners. So they've got maybe a Connex container and they're ramming fresh air in, and there's not a lot of, well, there's some science there, but it's not sophisticated. They've got maybe S9s running still, or they're in some kind of a transition, but the inefficiencies are there. Maybe they're paying high cost of power. The halving is a brutal event. It takes the block reward down by half. And when that happens, you have this revenue hit. So imagine if you have a pizzeria, and today in an hour, no matter what you're doing, no matter how many pizzas you're selling, the price of pizza goes down by half. You're going to have to make some pretty dramatic decisions to maintain making pizzas. And that's what the miners have to do, or they have to shut down.
Yeah, there's this element of as the hardware gets upgraded, right? So the S9s aren't going to be profitable once we get through this halving for most people because their cost is too high. A certain percentage of the network is already upgraded to S17s. I've seen estimates as high as 75% of the network or so. Is the thought process that the remaining 25%, they just go away, like they actually disappear? Do they shut off and then come back with new equipment? Like what happens to the people who haven't upgraded yet? How do you think about that?
Well, I think, and I think it's a high number, not a small number. So that's something you and I have really gone back and forth about. Let's use a Pareto principle and say 20% of the miners that are still here are inefficient miners. It could be higher, and I do believe it's higher, but let's say 20% are inefficient miners. They have resource constraints and challenges all over the place, Pomp. They probably couldn't take loans to upgrade their equipment. They couldn't raise equity to upgrade their equipment. They probably have high cost power PPAs, and a PPA stands for a purchase power agreement. And you just can't come in and out of an agreement like that. You may have like a month-to-month contract if you're really good, but you could have a 3, 6, or 12-month contract. And just imagine hitting the wall here, capital constraint, haven't upgraded hardware, and you're sitting in a PPA, you're blasting through any reserves you have in crypto. That's why you were here, right? It was to create some arbitrage. If I mine 1 Bitcoin, only use three quarters of it to pay my bills. But now you've had to sell it all. It totally sucks, and you're done. And that's kind of the capitulation that occurs.
Yeah. I see you guys in the comments bullshitting about my blender cup. Leave me the hell alone. This cup's the biggest cup I got in my house, so I use it because it carries the most water. Stay hydrated, or drink Miller Lite like Jason.
Yeah. Are you still eating those or drinking those green drinks?
Green drinks? Oh, athletic.
Yeah. What was that? Yeah. What is that thing?
Yeah, I like them.
What is it?
I don't ever eat vegetables. Everybody knows that I eat like shit, but Polina has been trying to convince me to eat much
Big
healthier.
shout out to McDonald's. I don't even know very many adults that eat at McDonald's like you do, and it's not right what you're doing to Polina.
Nah, Polina, she likes McDonald's periodically. She's not exactly a fan of it all the time.
Yeah, but I mean that can't be your favorite restaurant.
It's definitely my favorite restaurant. It's the best restaurant in America. Here's why. Consistent food production, low cost, and you always know what you're going to get. That's it.
Isn't it like, Pomp, isn't it like 1 in 4 or 1 in 5 Americans have worked at McDonald's?
Probably. I never worked at McDonald's. I worked at Chick-fil-A and Quiznos when I was younger.
But the amount of people that have been employed by McDonald's and just that represents the American population is staggering. It really is. I think it's 1 in 5.
Listen, I agree. For those that I see a bunch of people also saying that just because we don't eat healthy, that we need to go to the gym. Jason and I will outlift any of you. Everyone relax.
Do you even lift, bro?
All right. So another thing that people are asking about is institutional adoption for Bitcoin. Obviously, we had the recent news about Paul Tudor Jones getting kind of 1-2% exposure through the derivatives market. Kind of what
I thought that was fascinating, actually.
Why?
I don't know. It just seemed like for a conservative guy like that, and you can go into his background. You've read some books. Have you read his book?
No, I never read. I don't even. Does he have a book? I haven't read it. If he does, the best piece of content on him by far is there's a documentary on YouTube. I think it's called Trader, or just Google Paul Tudor Jones Trader, and it's really good. I think it's like an hour long, and it follows him around in like the mid '80s, and he's just like a super Southern dude who he looks at it as a game. Right. And I think at the time, the CIO says something like, I think Paul's like 33 years old during the documentary. His CIO is 27. And he's like, look, man, I used to play backgammon and chess all the time. And when I was in college, somebody was like, you like these types of games? I'll show you another game that is completely reliant on you making or losing lots of money on every decision. Let me teach you about stock futures. And that's how he got into it. Which is fascinating to me.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, what is he worth? $20 billion? I mean, is that what he has AUM?
He manages 22 billion, I think, give or take.
Right. And I don't want to be presumptuous, but he said he has 1 to 2% of his money at work in Bitcoin. Yeah.
So I think he's worth like 5 billion. And he's got 22 billion in assets. So call it, he's probably somewhere in the $300 to $500 million range of assets in Bitcoin right now.
And is he holding physical Bitcoin, or is he, how is he making that, putting that money to work?
No, I think he's doing it through the futures market. So he's not buying actual Bitcoin. It makes sense from a perspective of he appears to understand the argument for Bitcoin. He appears to understand why people are interested in it, but he doesn't yet believe that it's going to be a global reserve currency. So what he's doing is he's basically speculating on price, which is really what, if people are really honest with themselves, most people got into Bitcoin originally because of price. And then they kind of, I think it's Parker at Unchained Capital says like, come for the money, stay for the money. You come from a capitalistic price movement standpoint, and then you begin to learn about money, the economy, the financial markets, inflation, all of that kind of stuff. And you end up staying because of the sound money. I think that's probably what happens here with him, right? Is he comes to make money from a trading perspective, but ends up learning a lot about it.
I was shocked by his kind of, and I'm not surprised because he's obviously a brilliant guy, but his vision on the digitization of things. You know, he kind of got into that a little bit. I hope he comes back and talks a little bit more about that, because it's such a important and fundamental like underpinning of anyone who's investing in the space. You have to believe in like computers speaking to computers, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think part of it is, you know, as you think about the digitization, those that don't know, Jason and I, kind of our core thesis, along with Mark, is every stock, bond, currency, and commodity will be digitized over time. And you're already starting to see this in different aspects. Some of that will be with blockchain technology, some of it won't be. Bitcoin is obviously the first kind of digital currency that we're seeing that play out with. It sounded like Paul Tudor Jones is way down that road already, which is pretty encouraging. And my guess is that as a trader today, he doesn't have a lot of assets where he can speculate on. So Bitcoin is one of those. But over time, as other assets get digitized, like he'll start to incorporate those as well. And, you know, look, at some point in the future, I don't know if it's 10 years or 50 years from now, 100% of his portfolio and every other person's portfolio is going to be digital, right? It'll all be digital stocks, bonds, currencies, and commodities. The big question is just, when does that actually happen? And do the people who are early to that trend, do they benefit, you know, in an outsized way?
How do the futures markets work as compared to just holding physical Bitcoin?
Well, I think futures in general is the best way to think about this, if you know nothing about finance, is you're betting on the future price of an asset. So you basically enter into a contract. So let's say that Jason and I are both in the market. Jason says, I will sell you a contract at a future price on a future date. So let's just say $10,000 on June 30th, right? I can then go in and say, you know what? I think that Bitcoin is going to be worth more than $10,000 by June 30th. And so in that case, I will buy that contract from Jason. He's obligated to sell me Bitcoin at $10,000 on that date. Now, in the meantime—
Can I interrupt you for a second?
Yep.
So at that point, I have to take physical possession of that Bitcoin or sell the contract to someone else.
Yes. So technically, you can have a cash settled or a physically settled. Physically settled contracts mean that the Bitcoin's actually transacted at the end. A cash settled future just means we're betting on the price, but you never actually bought Bitcoin, and neither did I. We just settle up at the end what the difference in the money is.
So the reason I like to explore that is, can you relate that exact scenario to what happened in oil recently?
Oil is I mean, there's nobody in the world, I think, who—
And I mean when oil went to minus $37 a contract.
Yeah. So for those that don't know, oil basically, the way that you can buy it is through three different methods. You can actually buy oil directly, you know, like a stock that tracks the price of oil. So I guess there's four ways. You can buy oil. You can buy a stock that tracks the price of oil. You can buy a physically settled futures contract or a cash settled futures contract. Cash settled futures contract is the same thing I just described, where let's say that I'm holding a $10 contract. Oil today is at $12. When it ends, Jason has to pay me $2, right? The difference between what I paid and what it's worth today. What happened with physically settled oil contracts is that whoever's holding it on the day of expiration, they have to accept delivery of physical oil.
Physical delivery of the oil.
Yeah, so it literally shows up in barrels, right, or in a reservoir. And so what happened in April was the May contract. Obviously it settles a couple of days before you have to deliver or to receive delivery. So the day before it was supposed to expire, everyone started to panic a little bit, and then all of a sudden it went from, I'll sell this contract to anybody at $10. Nobody wanted to buy it from me, because if they bought it that day, they'd have to accept delivery. So then I said, I'll sell it for $9, for $8, for $7, for $5. Actually, you know what? I'll just give it to somebody. They don't have to pay me any money, $0. I'll just give it to them. Still, nobody would come take it from me. And so then people went negative, meaning I said to Jason, I'll give you $10 if you take this contract. Hey, Jason, I'll give you $20. I'll give you $30. I'll give you $50 at one point that day if you take this contract. So not only will I pay you $50 to take the contract, you also are going to get all the oil that's going to get delivered as well. And so ultimately it comes down to, like, why would somebody not want oil if they're getting paid to take it. And it's because they literally don't have anywhere to store it, right?
I mean, Pomp, I heard there were like barges floating around in the ocean, absolutely maxed out in oil. There's nowhere to physically receive oil because there's no demand. And everyone knows why that's happened because we've shut down the global economy.
Yeah, and also there's a bunch of we'll just call it, kind of screwing around that, look, Russia, Saudi Arabia, they all disagree on a bunch of this stuff. I always joke, actually in the Paul Tudor Jones documentary, this is hilarious. So at one point he's talking about OPEC and he's talking about he's betting, there's a rumor that OPEC is going to come to an agreement. And he says, I'm just, like a kid from Kentucky, basically. And you're telling me 13 people about to go in a room and come out with an agreement. I'll bet against that all day long. Right. And so he basically makes a financial investment on the idea that OPEC is not going to come to an agreement. And so a couple of minutes later in the documentary, they say OPEC has reached a deal, except for 2 people aren't going to abide by the deal. Right. And he literally says in there, he goes, well, that was a hard bet. And he's like kind of laughing about it. But ultimately, like that's what happens in the oil market, right? Is OPEC is, I think it's 13 countries, I may be wrong on that, who come together and they make agreements. How much oil is everyone going to produce? How do we not flood the market to drive down price and all this stuff? And Saudi Arabia basically saw an opportunity to flood the market and really to break the back of a lot of these oil producers because they aren't able to produce oil as cheaply as Saudi Arabia is. So I think Saudi can do it at like $2 or $3.
$6.
$6 bucks,
yeah, they can take oil out of the ground for $6. And Russia has made claim that at $25 US a barrel, they could survive for 10 years. And I agree with you. It almost seems like China, the Middle East, Russia, they can all fire this economic shot at the US because, as you know, the US is the world's largest oil producer at this time. And we certainly don't produce oil at the economics that these other countries do. So it's a crippling situation and one that is multifaceted and geopolitically connected.
Absolutely. Before we keep going, real quick, couple of housekeeping things. One.
Hey, let me interrupt you. I just one of my limit orders just hit on Gemini 8,500. 8,500. I got other ones. 8,500.
Well, if you guys want to know if we're buying today or not, there's your answer. So a couple of things. One, if you can smash the like button right underneath the.
I'll be sending that Bitcoin over to BlockFi to get interest.
Hit the like button. Leave a comment if you have any questions. We'll go probably for another 2 hours or so. So we'll do our best to try to answer those questions for you. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel so that you can get notifications when we post other videos. And then we have 2 sponsors for today, both Gemini and BlockFi. You talk about Gemini this time. I get to talk about BlockFi.
Yeah, so Gemini started by the Winklevoss twins. Again, an FDIC insured. They have other types of insurance to protect your crypto. Hot wallet, connect to your bank, to Gemini, and great place to trade. They have a mobile app that's I think has a great UI UX. I think we have a link to the mobile app also that you may want to put up at some point, Pomp.
I put it in the comments. I'll keep posting it in the comments, but go check them out there.
Yeah. So beyond that, they have a bunch of pairs now. So they've evolved beyond just trading, ETH and Bitcoin. I think that it's super slick interface. The user experience is great. And thanks very much. Appreciate that. Hey, do you have the box?
The box?
Yeah, I just got my pizza, son. I just got my pizza. And I use that. Have you ever used Shipping? I think it's called Shipping.
No, what's that?
So I think it's called Shipping. It's like, thanks. That's it. Thanks. Shipping is.
Who is it? Is that Ginger?
Yeah, that's the gangster. That's a 12-year-old versus Schiff.
You got to get her on.
No. She's not ready. She's not ready yet. A 12-year-old versus Schiff.
So for those that don't know, is Jason's 12-year-old daughter recently bought a little bit of Bitcoin with some money that she earned. And Jason took a picture and started tweeting at Peter Schiff that his 12-year-old was smarter than Peter Schiff. And as you can imagine, Peter freaked out.
Took the bait. He took the bait. Look, and it's a great opportunity to kind of teach, your kids or, around about kind of just finance and how money works. And she's caught the bug, man. She loves it. And she's got a little business, pressure washing. She uses that money to buy Bitcoin, which is cool. But no, so anyway, this shipping, I think it's called shipping. You can get groceries delivered to your house. And I use it like Target. And I just wanted to test it out. So I asked them to get me some like keto friendly pizza or gluten-free pizza, just to try it. So, I got this
Quest.
I don't know. I had never tried it, man. Frozen pizza, one bite, everyone knows the rules. Thin crust, uncured pepperoni, gluten-free, 6 net carbs. So it's keto friendly. And I'm gonna give it a try. We'll see how this goes.
If you want real pizza, just order Domino's. They never fail.
Dude, I have to give it to him. You said something that's so right. If you order Domino's pizza, their website is awesome. Like it literally has all these kind of bells and whistles going off. It tells you when the cheese is on the pizza and the sauce and when it hits the delivery and it's on the road. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's the whole idea is the mobile ordering is so great. And then, we were talking about it earlier today, but Starbucks, same thing. Mobile ordering completely changes the game for a lot of these businesses. So I think, I think Chipotle now is starting to do that, and we'll see more. By the way, before I forget, the other sponsor is BlockFi. As you guys know, we are huge fans of BlockFi. We're investors in the business. They sponsor the podcast. And the whole idea behind BlockFi is you can basically do 3 things. You can put crypto in and take a US dollar loan against your collateral. You can put crypto into an interest-bearing account. Your crypto is held with Gemini and then lent out on the back end. And you can earn up to 8.6% APY. And then they also have a cryptocurrency exchange. So you can buy and sell crypto there as well. In terms of how we talk about these businesses. So people a lot of times will ask me what goes on in the institutional investor room, right? When that door closes, what is the conversation like? And I think people see us having fun on Twitter and joking around a lot and stuff, but they know that obviously we're not going to walk in t-shirts and stuff into those rooms. And so what the conversation basically happens is, first of all, we wear suits and ties, which is pretty funny. But on top of that, we basically say there's 3 things. 1, every stock, bond, currency, and commodity is going to be digitized in the future. 2 is all of the same regulations apply to crypto that apply to your traditional financial assets. And 3 is there's a lot of really, really valuable, powerful companies that are being built in the space that can provide very unique opportunities. And so Gemini and BlockFi are 2 great examples. Gemini obviously has incredible security. They've gone through multiple SOC audits, and they, probably more than any other crypto exchange, I think, understand that trust is the product. Like if people trust you, they're willing to use you. And so they stay up, they stay running. They've got high levels of security. And I think that really highlights to people, kind of how serious they're taking regulation and security, which really puts institutional investors at ease. And then with BlockFi, like we've literally told multi-billion-dollar asset managers, people who manage billions of dollars, that they should go find their cash position. They should take 5% of their cash. They could go deposit it in an interest-bearing account with BlockFi and earn up to 8.6% APY. Jason and I both do it. We've told institutions to do it. It's a no-brainer because most people's money market account, they're earning 1 to 1.5%. If you're just leaving it in like a traditional savings or checking account, you're probably earning less than 50 basis points. And if all of a sudden you can take that, your cash is held in an FDIC insured State Street account, Gemini will issue you either GUSD or USDC you can use as well. And you deposit an interest bearing account and earn 8.6%. I keep saying over and over again, like the stock market's down. This year, you could have made more by simply putting your money in an interest bearing account than investing in stocks. And so I just tend to think that over long periods of time, an interest-bearing account that pays 8.6% is going to drastically outperform equities for the next 10 years for sure. And also is likely to outperform other asset classes as well. And it's relatively low risk. Obviously, go do your own research, all of that. But for the amount of diligence that we've done, we're super comfortable with it, and I think it's a great opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, I've said publicly, I probably have 99% of my cash in 3 or 4 vehicles. I have some cash, fiat dollars. I have GUSD in BlockFi, and then I have Bitcoin. You know, and I look at those as like liquid kind of positions for me, and to be able to earn interest on that is like icing. The BlockFi investment with GUSD, it rivals kind of real estate.
Yeah.
You know, if it holds up, you have this liquid, semi-liquid position in a stable token getting 8.6% interest. You know, depending on where you are in your kind of like wealth creation curve, that may be enough. Like, why take the risk of a stock market?
Yeah. Actually, let's talk about that a little bit. You and I probably, a lot of people don't hear us talk about from like a financial education and wealth creation standpoint. I think that there's a lot of people, I would put, there's 3 buckets of investors, right, that are in crypto. One is super sophisticated, either individuals or institutions. They are absolutely professionals. This is what they do for a living. They're highly educated, have tons of experience, access to data, etc. Then you've got a group of people who I would put above average in sophistication. They understand how money works. They understand kind of how to build wealth, and they're going down that path. They're not yet at the large institutional, large individual level. And then you got a lot of people, probably the majority actually of the market, that's actually relatively uneducated about finance, about how money works, how the economy works, and how to build wealth. Maybe let's spend a couple of minutes just talking through like how you in your life have thought about wealth building and kind of the steps to take in terms of maybe not guaranteeing that you'll get wealthy, but at least increasing the probability of building wealth by not making mistakes and really being patient over a long period.
Yeah, so in kind of my personal journey, if you would have asked my my accountant back in the day, you know, was Jason a urgent care entrepreneur or a real estate developer? He'd say I was a real estate developer, because my early kind of foray into business was to build a business like FastMed that could afford to pay a mortgage, but leverage that business to acquire real estate. So I was buying, you know, Blockbuster video stores or banks or post offices in cities, and then leveraging FastMed to pay that mortgage. It was a high leverage, kind of high risk situation, but as an owner occupied kind of entrepreneur, I understood the strength of my own balance sheet and my earning potentials, and I was willing to risk that. And I also had youth on my side. I was 25 years old when I started, so wasn't married, no kids, young, high leverage, but a real estate thesis. And what that's done over, you know, many years now, 15 years, 20 years later, is you have all these pieces of property, tier 1 pieces of property, renting or leasing in the healthcare space that you never paid any mortgage payments on. You leveraged the business, and you may have sold that business to a private equity backed urgent care business that now you know, is continuing to pay that rent. So I look at the beginning of my own kind of wealth creation was in real estate. Actually, I still own those properties, a number of those properties, even though I've sold FastMed, and they pay like an annuity. And I've tried to teach that to people that I go into business with, and you and I have been successful in doing some of that in our career together as well. I think it's a easy hack if you're if you have a good business and you need a physical space rather than renting, maybe buy.
Yeah. Well, it's also, I think that people forget the beauty of leverage, right? Especially if from an investment property standpoint, if you're able to basically buy a property, put the down payment down, and then you never make one of the monthly payments on the mortgage. Instead, you have a renter who's doing that, whether it's a business or individuals or multiple individuals. It's just leverage on your cash, right? And over a long period of time, you end up owning 100% of the property, but you use somebody else's money to do it. And obviously you got to be careful about the risk you take and kind of how much leverage you put on things, make sure you're buying good property, whatever. But I do think that having that long time horizon really helps, right?
Yeah, I mean, putting 15 to 20% down on this piece of property and then leveraging the rest, it's worked for me and us historically. But again, you have to do your own research on this one. I'm not a big leverage guy, so I other than real estate for some reason, it's interesting and something to explore at some point. You know, I don't like debt. I don't like credit cards. I don't even like running businesses with debt, startups, etc. But for some reason, I don't mind using some leverage on real estate. I mean, have you ever thought about why you'll tolerate that, or maybe you like using leverage in other real estate or other investment opportunities?
Well, I think that, so I used to be of the belief that like leverage and debt was really bad, right? And it kind of all problems stemmed from leverage and debt. I think over time, as I've talked to more and more super experienced investors, where I come out on it now is it's only bad if you abuse it, right? It's kind of like one of my favorite life mottos is anything worth doing is worth overdoing. But there's an asterisk on that, which is except in finance, which is, you can very quickly
someone pulled the rug out of Bitcoin.
What happened?
Just broke 8,400.
Where's it going?
It's going.
Let me ask this. How low, while we're on this live stream, how low do you think Bitcoin goes?
Man, so, I may get in trouble for restating this because I already got reprimanded a little bit about this earlier. But I've been saying that, I expected Bitcoin to be around 6,800 going through the halving. That could be before or after. And I've made some large purchases at a much higher number than 6,800. And people are like, oh, that doesn't make any sense. Why are you buying Bitcoin at 9,000 if you think it's going to 6,800? I'm DCAing. I'm not certain it's going to 6,800. And I'm just hitting it with dry powder each time. I'm not selling Bitcoin. So I've got Bitcoin at 9,000. I got Bitcoin at 3,000. I got, whatever the prices are, but it's all just new allocations.
Yeah. It's, it is this thing where, when it comes to Bitcoin, again, just like real estate, like I actually explain Bitcoin sometimes to people as real estate. I say, look, why are people so excited about land, right? And it's this whole idea of they're not going to make more of it. And so if they're not going to make more of it and more people want it, supply demand economics take over, price goes up over time. Also, the fiat currency gets devalued against it. And so it takes more fiat currency to buy that same piece of property the longer you wait, right? Bitcoin's going to be no different. And it's proven that way over the last 11 years. And so I think that the DCA model is, again, mathematically proven. I think now there's certain things that you can go in and like, if you started buying at the top of the market of 2017 and you DCA'd for the last 3 years, you would still be up today. Right. And it's just like, when you see things like that, one of the biggest lessons I think I've learned over the last couple of years is driving financial returns really is all about asset allocation more so than it is about individual investments, right? It's all about the discipline and strategy. And if you nail that, you can make mistakes in the short term and be fine. Why are your eyes like?
Man, Bitcoin's dumping like a lactose intolerant person eating a bunch of ice cream.
Listen,
this thing is.
Somebody asked in the comments, what, if anything, do we ever argue about? And I was sitting here thinking, I honestly think the only thing that Jason and I have ever argued about is the Bitcoin price. What's going to happen next? And like, I can't think of anything else. And it's always a debate on, there's so many inputs and you're really putting different weightings on all the different inputs. And so we come out to different conclusions all the time. Yeah.
I tend to, I think you have a very good approach at how you assess the space because of your super low time preference. And neither of us are traders. So, this is really just about when to buy, because I don't think that we've really explored when to sell.
Yeah.
We've thought a little bit about it, but I can't tell, like, what number would you sell Bitcoin?
I honestly don't think I'd sell.
See, and I think I learned a really valuable lesson from Mark around rebalancing, because I think rebalancing is important, especially if you are overweight in any position, or get overweight simply because you've had a big success. I mean, how can you say you'll never sell? I mean, what if Bitcoin hits the numbers that some of the people that we respect have like hypothecated, like Plan B, saying that Bitcoin could potentially, you know, hit 288,000 by 2024? You wouldn't reallocate your position, you'd hold.
No, I would continue to press it.
Because you've been validated in so many ways by that happening. It's almost now like this is too easy, and how a lot of OGs feel about the fact that Bitcoin's at 8,300 right now when they were in at $1.
I think there's two aspects. The first is, again, structurally, right? You know the story, but for those that don't know, I once asked Mark Yusko, you know, right when we first started working together, I said, hey, you pretty much spent most of the last 20 years talking to the absolute best investors in the world. Name an investor on Wall Street who is one of the best, and Mark knows them, right? He spent time, he's even given them money as an LP. And so I said to him, look, you've interviewed all of them, right? In terms of potentially giving them capital. What separates the top 5 from the top 1%? So the best of the best of the best from just the best. And he said one thing very easily. He said the absolute 5 best in the world cut their losers faster than anyone else, and they press their winners harder than anyone else. And I think like that's like seared in my brain, one, but also two is, you know, I look at this in a very, I think, nuanced yet unique way, which is the only reason I'm interested in Bitcoin is because I fundamentally believe it will be the next global reserve currency.
Really?
Right. And when I say that in like the institutional rooms, they literally are like, you're absolutely insane. Like there's zero chance of that happening.
Doesn't that melt down the United States at that point, though? I mean, okay.
Why do you think it does?
Well, I mean, isn't having the global reserve currency status like super important? And yeah,
but there's a bunch of other superpowers in the world that don't have the global reserve status.
Well, they had it and lost it.
No, well, Russia never had it. China never had it.
Great Britain had it.
Yeah,
right. I think the British sterling, and I think it took a world war to displace them. Some would say they lost grip on it in the 1920s, but I think maybe World War II knocked them out.
Yeah. So like my whole thought process with this though is every currency that's ever failed from global reserve status, when they failed, it was due to conflict, right? So whether go all the way back to Rome, the pound, whatever, they all fail because they got devalued to the point of weakness. Somebody seized that weakness, came in and crushed either the economy, the population, or both, right? The difference here is when you move to a digital world, war is not going to be fought the same.
8,200. I'm sorry to interrupt you, man. This
price brought to you by Gemini.
Yeah, this is like wild, man.
All right, it's gonna keep going down.
Let's see. Yeah, just keep going. Sorry, I'm gonna keep interrupting.
So I think that war is going to be fought very differently, right? We're not going to fight with bombs and bullets like we used to. Instead, there's going to be much more cyber war that goes on. But the difference between physical war and cyber war is in the cyber realm, the best offense doesn't win. Actually, the best defense wins. And what I mean by that is when you're at war in the physical sphere, if I just come and I shoot you, I win, you lose, right? It's very kind of binary, and it's all about military might. Here in the digital world, what ends up happening is whoever has the best defense can prevent an attack. And even if, let's say, the United States hacked, let's say, China's electrical grid, if they kicked us out and we never got back in, then China actually wins, right? Because they have a bigger defense than we do in offense. And so in the cyber world, like who has the strongest computing network or the best security? The Bitcoin network is the strongest computer in the world. So in a cyber war, Bitcoin is the dominant military force, if you think of it from that perspective. Because of that, what ends up happening is every nation state can attack it. It doesn't matter, right? It will still remain the strongest in the world because of the decentralized nature. And so as we move to this digital world, a currency, the next reserve currency, is going to have the strongest defense. Bitcoin has that. And so the reason why I am so heavily allocated to it is I actually think that there's a greater than 50% chance that Bitcoin will be the next global reserve currency. That seems like a big number, but I always say to people, okay, do you believe that the US dollar will remain the global reserve currency forever? Most people say, I don't know when it will end, but at some point in the future, even if it's 1,000 years from now, at some point it ends.
But most of them, they last about 100 years, right? Something like that. Yeah, something like that. And we're like 80 years, or I don't know how long it's been, 60 years, something like that.
Yeah, it depends on when you count from, for sure, but it's definitely been decades, right? And so if you believe that the US dollar is not going to be the global reserve currency forever, then my question becomes, okay, what replaces it? And today there's two answers: a currency that already exists or a currency that doesn't yet exist. Most people can't comprehend a currency that doesn't exist will then replace and be the next global reserve currency. So they look in the bucket of currencies that exist. And then I say to them, okay, let's start with fiat. What fiat currency that currently exists today will end up being the global reserve currency? 9 out of 10 times people will say the Chinese currency, right? That's like the go-to. If not that, they say, I don't see one. And so my point here is I do not believe that we are going to have a sovereign currency as the next reserve currency simply because none of these other countries will allow it. Where the days of this are of kind of a currency backing or a state backing a currency, I think are over. The dollar has a long runway. We're going to get a separation of state and money. And when we enter a digital world, I think Bitcoin ends up being the winner.
Yeah, but Pomp, and you may have just said this, so if I'm restating this, just confirm it. Could Bitcoin exist outside of even the global reserve currency status, but be something that is used by nations to transact and do business outside of their currency? Simply, it's like a hedge against fuckery?
Of course. I actually think that this is in stages, right? So right now, let's put it, you have in the world, basically 99.9% fiat currency, 0.1% digital currency, right? And that digital currency is dominated, 60, 70% by Bitcoin. In my opinion, you are likely to get coexistence in the next 10 to 20 years. Meaning that you have fiat currencies and you have Bitcoin. Those fiat currencies will become digitized. So you have a digital dollar, digital yuan, digital yen, digital euro, whatever, and you'll have Bitcoin. When you get to parity on the technology stack, now the competition is not on the technology layer because you're already at parity. Everyone has the same technology. You then get to a competition at the monetary policy level. The US, China, Russia, India, the euro, anybody in the world, they cannot change their monetary policy structure. They can change the decisions, but they can't change the structure. They are locked into an inflationary system. And so ultimately what I think people will choose is they'll choose a transparent, programmatic monetary policy. And I always go back to you will trust algorithms over humans, right? We already do that. People, when they get lost in a new city, they ask Google Maps. They don't ask somebody on the street corner anymore. If you have a question, you don't ask your friend, you ask Google. Want a music recommendation? Spotify and Apple Music give it to you, not your buddy, right? And so in that, those are all non-financial type things. So they're important, right? Physically, where am I going? What am I listening to? Whatever. But slowly but surely, we'll start to do that in the financial system as well. We'll just trust the machines, right? Like the machine overlords are coming. The beauty is we still are in control of the machines to some degree. And I think that Bitcoin ends up winning. And therefore, I have a high risk tolerance because that's my belief. And I'm young enough, that's the other key piece, right? Is I'm young enough where I could lose everything today. And I actually think that I'd make more money if that happened than if I didn't lose everything today. Right. And so it's just like when you come from that mentality, it's like, look, this just seems pretty, fucking high probability in my opinion. Let's let it roll.
What did you think about what Vladimir Putin said about crypto and Bitcoin when asked about a state-sponsored cryptocurrency?
Yeah, that was 6 blocks left for those that are keeping pace at home, about an hour out, give or take. So I think that, first of all, that video is from 2018. He's got somebody put it to me, it's a morning talk show that makes Putin look good. or a weekly talk show that makes Putin look good. So he takes questions from citizens and
communism.
yeah, and he basically shows off his intelligence, right? By the way, it's very obvious he's incredibly intelligent, right, from a raw horsepower standpoint. And somebody asked him, hey, do we need to worry about digitizing our currency, or will Russia ever create a cryptocurrency? And Putin basically answers because, well, it's impossible for us to create a cryptocurrency because a cryptocurrency is decentralized, and like it's in Russia's best interest never to have a decentralized thing because we would want to control, right? And I'm paraphrasing, but basically what he said. So one, he definitely understands this way better than people originally thought. Two is there's game theory at play, right? Where countries are going to have to go through that game theory. And I think ultimately where you get is, I think it's Unchained Capital. Their series that Parker writes is like slowly, but then suddenly, right? Which is everyone is, it's kind of like everyone's sitting in a room and they all have guns pointed at each other. And no one wants to be the first to shoot, right? Because the first person to shoot is definitely getting killed. And so everyone's just pointing their gun at each other. But the first time a central bank says, hey, we've bought Bitcoin and put it in our reserves, or a country says, hey, we're going to adopt Bitcoin at like an actual real big country says we're going to adopt Bitcoin as a national currency, or we're going to use it for bilateral trade, everyone's going to have to do it.
But what about China, though? It seems like China has made a move into a digital currency, and they seem to be testing it like McDonald's and Pizza Hut. And I mean, unless that's fake news.
Oh, they're definitely testing it. I have no doubt about that. I think that maybe they and I and you have very different ideas about what we're optimizing for, right?
All right. Well, explain.
I think, well, they're optimizing for surveillance, right? They're trying to usher in a
cash. This is like track and trace, but with money.
Yeah. I mean, look, the governments around the world have found it incredibly valuable to be able to control and track money, right? Any crime movie you watch, what do? They follow the money, right? And so
isn't Bitcoin kind of like a crappy way to pull off heists and stuff? I mean, it's not a very good. You still want to use cash, right? If you want to do something nefarious, or
I don't think Bitcoin is a great thing to use in its current state to commit crimes. I actually think it's a really, really bad thing to use because you can be traced. In terms of cash, we know $2 trillion a year is laundered, and used for all kinds of nefarious purposes. I still crack up when I saw Secretary Mnuchin go on CNBC and hit Joe Kernan.
Mnuchin?
Yeah, what's his name?
I think it's Mnuchin.
Mnuchin, whatever. Listen,
Mnuchin. But I don't know what his name is, man. Mnuchin.
Put it this way. That you got Jerry Stockpicker and Jerome Powell. You've got Stevie Money Printer in the Treasury Department versus Satoshi. I'll take Satoshi all day long.
I love the names. I love the names.
It's because here's what's going on. And this is the part that I get super passionate about, because you and I are in a position where we're fortunate enough to understand what's happening, right? Knowledge is power in this scenario. But what has occurred over the last, 6-8 weeks is two things. One, the US government bought the peace of people. They bribed the people into not having social unrest.
$1,200.
Yeah. Think of that investment. We're going to give everybody, and by the way, only a certain percentage of people got $1,200. Most people got less, and anyone who made over 100K got nothing, right? So they basically bought for $200 billion that they invented they literally printed out of thin air and gave to people. They bought social peace, right? So there was no unrest. And then on top of that, they then went and they printed another, call it 1.7 trillion, so a total of more than $2 trillion, and they started handing it out to people. It's literally like a drug. And they're doing all of this, but what they're doing is
you're talking about PPP.
PPP, all the stimulus, everything that they printed, the bailouts, all this stuff. They've printed so much money. They've expanded the federal balance sheet, the Federal Reserve balance sheet by 50+% in 6 weeks. And all they're doing is they're robbing people who don't understand. Like the US financial system is based on 50% or more of the population not understanding how money works. And they're using that to their advantage. They are literally stealing the wealth from the bottom 50%. And a stat I saw yesterday was 55% of Americans own stock, either directly, like they put it into a trading account, they bought it, whether it's Robinhood or Charles Schwab or whatever.
It's a big number.
It's a retirement account.
It's a big number.
45% own no stock.
Big number.
And so guess who just got screwed? The bottom 45% of Americans, because guess what's happening? The economic data is getting worse and worse, but the stock market's rallying.
Yeah, but it's being propped up, right?
Of course, they're just enriching their friends, right? And here's my favorite part. How much do you think Jerome Powell's worth?
Bro, these guys are not, it's amazing. 40 million.
More. I think he's worth over $50 million.
Incredible.
Right?
No, it's incredible.
He's the richest person at the Federal Reserve.
It's absolutely incredible.
So here's what I think should happen. They should have to show us their trading accounts. What has Jerome Powell been doing in his trading account over the last
bro, they're front running everything. I mean, people have already gotten caught with that. They front run everything.
People were.
Yeah, it's like the hardest thing to prove, though, insider information trades.
Yeah, I'm not even accusing them of anything.
I am.
I'm not even saying that what they did is illegal, right? Because there's all kinds of things like Matt Levine from Bloomberg wrote a really great piece around, I think it was Matt. So there's an L train in New York. The L goes from basically lower Manhattan across to Brooklyn. And at one point there was very heavy discussion, not even rumors, like actual public hearings, et cetera. They were going to shut down the L train. So people started moving out of certain parts of Brooklyn because they were like, I'm not going to be able to get to work because there's no other train other than the L train. And the plan that the city had was they were going to use buses to go across the bridge rather than go in the subway, which would have been a nightmare. And so all of a sudden everyone starts leaving. What happens to real estate prices? They all start sinking, right? To account for that demand change. Well, at some point, the city decided they weren't going to shut down the L train. Instead, they were just going to make the changes at night when nobody was riding the train. And so I guarantee you that there was people who was aware of that decision before it was announced, went and started buying real estate. Is that insider trading?
Yes.
That's under the law. No.
Come on.
But is it ethical? I don't know, right? Like it's a very complex situation. So I'm not accusing anybody of doing anything illegal, but what I am saying is take, for example, somebody like Kudlow, right? This guy who keeps going, he's like the national economic director or whatever. After the first,
wasn't he a talk show host?
Maybe, I don't know. But at one
Larry
point,
Kudlow.
Oh yeah, a week into the economic downturn, they literally, he went on television and said, now's a good time for people to buy. People should buy the dip, right? And a week later he went on and they were like, you told people last week to buy the dip, but it's still falling. Like, what do you have to say for yourself? He's like, oh no, I only said to buy it if you're a long-term investor. But like, if it comes out that he's telling people to buy, but he's actually selling in his personal portfolio, huge.
But there's the transparency thing that I think, whether you're legally obligated to be transparent or like you feel a moral imperative to be transparent, that's kind of it. Be transparent. Is that what you're asking Larry Kudlow to show his stock trades?
All of them. Larry Kudlow, Jerome Powell, the president.
How about Mnuchin?
Yeah, oh man, I'd love to see him.
That dude's rolling.
By the way, can we talk about one of the best photos ever is him and his wife holding up the sheet of dollars.
It's wild, man.
Like it literally looks like out of a movie.
It's wild. I mean, she's got like Louis Vuitton bag. And, did you read when he said that the average US family could live off of $1,200 for 10 weeks?
Yeah, he's smoking crack. 5 blocks left.
5 blocks left. We hit 8170.
Think it's gonna, do we see below 8K?
I don't know, man. It bounced hard off of 8170 and went back to 8453. But it could sub 8,000. Sub 8,000. That would be wild.
Sitting over there on the couch and she just looks up from her computer and goes, dead cat bounce.
I love it. I love it.
Today she got an education on what a dead cat bounce was. And she was very confused when I said, no, like a dead cat would bounce off the ground. And she said, okay, I don't like this anymore.
So, I mean, how are things in New York right now? Are people still like locked down from COVID? You guys getting back to work? Restaurants opening? I mean, what's the story?
No, listen, here's my whole perspective on COVID. And this is, everyone get their popcorn ready because I know this is a hot take, but I truly believe this. Andrew Cuomo and Bill de Blasio are complete idiots, like just flat out idiots. And here's why. They know what they're doing and it's all political posturing. So here's what's going on in New York City. New York City is reporting, I don't know, I'd have to look at the latest stats, but I think like 15,000 deaths, right, from COVID. And they're yelling and screaming about it's so bad. To caveat this whole thing, I think COVID's real. I think it's killing people. I think that we should do a lot of things to address the issue. But the problem is they also have their health people going out. And here's what they're saying at public press conferences. We're counting people in the death rate that don't have COVID. You say, wait, what do you mean? And so literally, let's say 15,000 people. I remember the numbers at 12,000, right? So it was 12,000 people. 7,000 people had died from COVID, right? They had tested positive for COVID and died. Now, as part of that, it brings into the question, did they die from COVID or did they have
complications? No, complications. Yeah.
Or did they have a heart attack, but were COVID positive and they get counted for COVID, right? They didn't decipher the difference. But the other 5,000 people died, never tested positive, and they were getting counted.
Right. But Pomp, again, and most people don't know this, but I was the medical examiner of Cumberland County back in like 2010 through 2013. And that position was an appointment from the chief medical officer's space in Chapel Hill. So the office of the chief medical examiner appoints medical examiners in each county. And I would be responsible for forensics and signing the death certificate on any homicide, suicide, accidental death, or death in the hospital. And oftentimes I wouldn't do a full autopsy on those patients. I would take their medical history. I would do a superficial exam, to toxicology, et cetera. But I would have to figure out like what was the cause of death. And, it's all it would take was someone to tell me that if anyone comes in with a, concomitant health problems, so cardiac issues, diabetes, respiratory issues, and that had a high fever, respiratory distress, and died, it would be easy for me to correlate or establish that they could have died through complications of COVID-19 if I didn't have a test. So I just don't think it's that big of a stretch. Now, you can't say everybody is dying from COVID, but I can see how they could, give some guidance there.
Here's the difference, though. So there's a couple of key pieces. The stimulus bill, you get paid for saying they died from COVID. So the financial incentive immediately switches to
the hospital. You're saying the hospital.
The hospital gets money. I think it's like it's $7,000 or $8,000 for every COVID death.
Wow.
So if you're under financial pressure at the hospital, immediately now, if I say they died from COVID, there's a financial incentive. That's second thing is there's a massive step up in payment if they were on a
ventilator,
right? And it's like $20,000 or $30,000. So now it becomes a financial thing, which isn't great. But the bigger problem is, and I kept saying this, the data is wrong. I actually don't know, is it better or worse than what they're telling us? But they actively know that the data is inaccurate. And the problem is they just go to the biggest number they can find because it's all about headlines, right? It's all about how do I get political posturing, right? And look, there's not a person who's asked Andrew Cuomo a hard question. Like the first three questions I'd ask Andrew Cuomo in a press conference, one, why are you still taking a salary while you've taken away the earning income of all the small business owners in your state?
Yikes.
Right? Like you're not a leader. You're asking them to do something you're not willing to do. Second, why did your brother supposedly claim that he had COVID, go off air, but then he was caught in the Hamptons at the beach?
Why are you going after his brother, son?
Because I don't believe them.
You talking about that guy bike ride?
Chris Cuomo. Said he had COVID, and then literally somebody stopped him in the Hamptons with his family. I said, bro, didn't you say you had COVID?
Didn't he get in a fight with the guy?
No, I think that was a different situation.
No, I think he did. I think he got in a confrontation. No, I think he got in a confrontation with that guy.
It's clown town, right? The third thing I would ask him is Andrew Cuomo, are you willing to admit that, or are you willing to return any money from hospitals in your state if it comes out later that the person didn't die from COVID?
No.
Of course not. And by the way, I don't think that he should have to do that. But the point goes to, it's getting them to admit there's a huge financial incentive here, right? And the sad part is that we have to address both issues. Like
but what about beyond the financial incentive? What about the political brinksmanship on top of that? So isn't there kind of this kind of Republican Democrat thing going on when it comes to COVID as well? There seems like there's a lot of like push and tug and all that other stuff going on with the president. I mean, it's really sad actually, but.
Look, and here's the sad part, right? Is the people who get caught in the middle are the people who are actually suffering from the health crisis and the people suffering from the economic crisis. So right now, we have states like, all over basically the Midwest and the South and stuff that are starting to reopen in various stages. New York City just extended their shelter in place to June 6th. So we got a whole nother month of shelter in place, right? But what ends up happening is it doesn't have to be so binary, but the reason why they want it to be binary is because the shock and awe factor, it gives them control, right? Like here's the crazy part. Ready? This goes directly to like the Bitcoin ethos. Bill de Blasio came out and said he is outlawing protest. Right? Literally, there's people protesting. They have masks on. They're social distancing. They're protesting against him and what he's doing. And he said, I'm going to use the military or the police force I have. They have men with guns in government uniforms, and we're not going to let you protest.
Let me ask you this question. And, we haven't prepped for this. So when 9/11 happened and they hit the Twin Towers, we got war and we got the Patriot Act. And from my perspective, what the Patriot Act allowed the U.S. to do was to establish that any bank in the world doing business with who the United States deems a terrorist, they could slam the door on them, actually shut down their banks. And the Patriot Act exists now. You've got AML, KYC, all the other stuff associated with the Patriot Act, travel restrictions, et cetera. What do we get from this? What do we get from the 2020 pandemic? Because something's happening.
Yeah.
Is it track and trace? Is it track and trace?
So first of all, it is the right question. It is like this is the multi-trillion-dollar question, right? What is the impact of all of this coming out? There will be more surveillance. There will definitely be more kind of physical measures in place. Here's the thing that scares me. I generally think that electronic surveillance is going to continue. Not because I want it to, but that's just the nature of technology. That's the nature of governments, all that kind of stuff. People have the ability to opt out, but there's a trade-off between convenience and privacy. So if you don't want somebody to track you electronically, don't use a computer, don't use a phone. Your life will suck, right? It'd be almost impossible to operate in today's society, but you can do that and not be tracked in that manner. And so obviously if that's not possible, then what's the next degree? And you can kind of work your way to that intersection of convenience and privacy and where you're comfortable. You just got to educate yourself. The thing that actually scares me more than that though, is that people complied. And what I mean by that is what happens next time with like, oh my God, a virus is coming, everyone get inside. Don't leave your home. And frankly, here's the truth.
And don't organize and protest, right? Yeah, it's beyond just stay in your house.
No, but like, I'm not a medical.
Did you see them arrest the Australian woman with her child? I mean, it was heartbreaking to watch. I really struggled with that. It was a peaceful protest. Police organized around her. Obviously, she had broken some local ordinance or law, but it was aggressive. They ripped her child from her. It was really, these are low points, in my opinion. Regardless of the law being broken, it just seems like we're losing humanity. We're losing civil rights. It's distressing. It's distressing to see with just the limited information I have.
Yeah, and here's the beauty of it, right? The reason
that's distressing is Bitcoin dropping to 8,400.
Well, the reason why I think so much about this other stuff is I do believe that Bitcoin is getting to be the size, and definitely over the next 18 months, we'll get to the size where these macro events will have a material impact, right? There will be things that you have to consider and understand the macro environment. But at the same time, the beauty of Bitcoin is that there's none of this. There's none of this politics. There's none of this 13 people at OPEC go into a back room and decide what to do. There's none of the, Bank of England governors get together for dinner and make a monetary policy decision.
Yeah, but let me challenge that for a second, because I don't block the trolls, and the trolls hit me constantly. And we have these kind of discussions, and I try to learn. People who hit me up will say, miners are doing this, or there's a group that's actually still engineering Bitcoin. I mean, what do you say about these statements that Bitcoin's highly manipulated? The exchanges have all kinds of wash trading going on. There are engineers involved in Bitcoin, And at the very end of this, China's in control of all the hash anyway. And so they can manipulate this thing, seize the day. What do you think about all that?
Yeah, I mean, look, it goes back to what's being manipulated, right? The price being manipulated on an exchange, the value of Bitcoin's not being manipulated. The US dollar exchange price is being manipulated. By the way, the Federal Reserve is manipulating the US dollar price of Bitcoin by devaluing the dollar, right? So literally the Federal Reserve is making Bitcoin more valuable in USD terms every single year, right? Now we don't say, hey, the Federal Reserve is manipulating the price, but because they're doing it slowly over a long period of time, but they are manipulating the price intentionally, right? And they're doing that for lots of assets. What doesn't get manipulated is the core value prop of Bitcoin, which is that no one can manipulate the monetary policy, right? And the more that I've studied this and spent time talking to people and really thought critically about what is Bitcoin's value proposition, it has nothing to do with technology, right? Because guess what? You and I could go create a Bitcoin tomorrow that matches from a from a feature parity standpoint. It is the social and psychological elements of Bitcoin. Bitcoin was able to capture the belief of money. And ultimately, that's what money comes down to, right? Money is a belief system. And the reason why the dollar has value is because we all believe it does. When I hand it to you, you think it's valuable, I think it's valuable, right? And actually, the value fluctuates. Today, the dollar, you and I believe, is stronger than it was 6 weeks ago. That's why asset prices all fell and everyone wanted dollars, right? The demand for dollars went up. But what ends up not being manipulated is no one's going to step in and say, we're going to print more Bitcoin, or we're actually going to accelerate the halvings, right? Or any of that stuff. It's very programmatic. It's very transparent. Now, if something was to happen, we would know immediately. And on top of that, because of that transparent programmatic nature, people have bought into the belief of money. And what I always tell the detractors is like, let's say you're right, that Bitcoin has no value, that Bitcoin is worthless, all this stuff. The problem is you're on the wrong side of the trade because the market has disagreed with you for 11 years. And so if you only want to trade an asset, how long can you withstand being on the wrong side of the trade and not change your mind, right? And part of that is you're actually getting more and more pain as the longer you wait, right? So the good news is you're not going to lose money. It's not like you're shorting Bitcoin if you're a detractor, but you are missing the opportunity set, right? Or you're missing the opportunity cost is what you're giving up. And so to me, it's just like, I kind of just have stopped trying to convince people, right? It's like a thing of, hey, either you take the time and are self-interested enough to go learn and understand this stuff, or you're not.
Yeah, I was recently watched you interview Robert Kiyosaki, but I was actually more interested in him interviewing you. I think you recently went on his podcast, and I can't remember the other fellow you went on, but he was like a gold expert or a gold bug. And Robert Kiyosaki is an interesting person, to say the least, but he does support cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin in particular. I think he owns some Ethereum and some other coins, but he's big gold and silver guy. And it seems like you support gold. Like you're kind of, you would hang with Peter Schiff and have a beer. I think you probably agree with a lot of the things that he says outside of his kind of, venomous BS about Bitcoin. But, because, and I said to you before, like I own gold and I own silver. I think they're really interesting. I've owned them for a very, very long time. Even as a little kid, I collected like proof sets and silver, but, to have it, it's difficult. Like if you ever move, you've got bags of silver or bars of gold. It's kind of just clunky and it really shows why Bitcoin's interesting in terms of, just the ability to transfer it. But what do you think about gold and silver? I mean, do you own any? And
I own none, but I think that they're going to do well, right? Like, again, it all goes back to the same thesis or kind of the trend, right? And that trend is the dollar is going to be devalued over time. It's probably going to be accelerated because of all the money printing. And so any sort of store of value or inflation hedge asset is going to do well. Real estate will do well. Bitcoin will do well. Gold and silver will do well. And then it just becomes a question of like, well, what's going to do the best out of all of those, right? And I think that's what, seeing Paul Tudor Jones basically come in and validate the idea of, I think the way he phrased it was like the fastest horse wins. and Bitcoin has that volatility. And so, one of the things that, this because you and I talk about all the time, but I want the volatility because the volatility works in both directions. Yeah, there's huge drawdowns, but if you can stomach those, it also means that there's these massive upward movements as well, right? And so that volatility, I would become much less interested in Bitcoin if there wasn't the volatility, because that meant it probably wouldn't have the volatility needed to gain the market share and eventually become a global reserve currency, right?
It's amazing to hear you say that, because I recently posted an interview that you did. You were on Squawk Box. I think it was like November 2018, and Bitcoin had gotten down to like the mid 3000s. And I think Becky Quick or Andrew Ross Sorkin had said to you, like, have you been buying? Are you buying this? And you were like, I'm buying it all the way down. And that's so counterintuitive. Most investors would be like, you're trying to catch a falling knife. But your conviction is that this thing's not going to zero. If it goes to zero, it's over anyway, potentially.
But it's not going to go to zero.
And even if it does, it doesn't necessarily mean it's over, because we saw oil go to minus 37, and it's not over for fossil fuels. So you've got to develop that.
The reason why it won't go to zero is, again, because of the belief system. You won't get every single person to give up. It may go to sub $1, right? Yeah. I don't think it will, but like from a structure standpoint, it could go really, really low, but it won't go to zero, because you'll never convince every single person in the world to walk away.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And that's the only way that you get in this type of market. That's the only way you get a zero, like an actual, $0, 0 cents type thing. But I mean, look, again, it is speculative in nature because of the binary outcome. It's either worth way more than it is today, or it's worth way less. There's no 10 years from now, Bitcoin's not worth $8,300, $8,400. No way.
When do you think it's materially worth more than $8,400, which it is right now?
Oh, I mean, look, I've been saying it for a while. In the next 18 months, by the end of 2021, December of 2021, I think we see at least $100,000 US dollar price of Bitcoin.
Right. So the stock to flow model, the original stock to flow model, showed a Bitcoin price between 2020 and 2024 of $56,000. I think that was Plan B's work. And then this S2FX model has revised that to $288,000.
Yeah.
By the end of 2024. Now, it doesn't mean it's going to be there. It means it could have achieved that level, which is unbelievable. I mean, it's literally approaching the market cap of gold at that point, I think, 288,000.
Yeah, the market cap of gold divided by Bitcoin is probably somewhere, depending on what numbers you use, and if you account for any lost or destroyed Bitcoin, it's probably in the $350,000 to $500,000 range. Per Bitcoin. Again, it's just, to me, like, I continue to say to people, the Bitcoin that I buy, I hope one day, literally my grandkids, right, are sitting there being like, wow, we've had this in the family for however long. Because if you have that type of time horizon, I don't care what happens to the price right now.
Right. And you believe that you'll book it like, you'll look at it like a store of value. You'll look at it like a unit of exchange. You'll look at it like an asset on your balance sheet that you don't necessarily liquidate, but you could leverage against and just market. Just like owning a house or owning something that you're not selling every year.
Well, just think about it. I don't know when it becomes a global reserve currency. I actually think we're probably all.
I think Plan B says phase 5 of Bitcoin's evolution. It's challenging for a global reserve currency, which is, in my estimation and opinion, pretty mind-blowing. I mean, that's not a great situation, but anyway.
Yeah, I think that happens faster than we believe. Let's say most people think it happens in 50 years, right? That's just a big round number way out there. 50 years from now, it happens. I actually think whatever that consensus number is, it happens faster because we underestimate what's possible in long. The iPhone is 13 years old.
It's incredible, man. It's freaking incredible.
If you think about that for a second, the iPhone, this thing that we all are like, oh my God, it's like a supercomputer in our thing. They're on like the 11th or 12th iteration of it.
Yep.
Right. It's got, literally the phone I have has 3 cameras in it.
It's incredible.
Right? And it's just like, okay, so if that can iterate so quickly, I think that we are likely underestimating, one, how big Bitcoin can get, and two, how fast that can happen. Like if you had said to people in 2009 who are on that cypherpunk email list, hey, we think Bitcoin's going to be worth $10,000 in less than 10 years, right? And what ended up being 8 years is it hit $10,000. They would have laughed at you. They'd been like, no way, right? But that's what happened. And so to me, it doesn't matter if it becomes a global reserve currency today or in 50 years. It is such a binary outcome that's where people have to get the risk profile, right? Like so many people talk about the upside and the investment decision. I keep talking about what is the risk profile that you're willing to accept. So Paul Tudor Jones, for example, is 1% to 2%, right? He says highly speculative. I think it's going to be the best performer, but it's unproven. He's super into managing his risks. So he's going to put 1% to 2% of his assets. Well, there's kids who are 20 years old who are like, dude, do I buy the S&P? Do I buy Bitcoin or do I hold cash? Well, like when you're 20, if I had to go back and do it again, this is me personally, right? I would have risked every dollar I had because it was nothing compared to what you're going to earn over your lifetime, right? And so it's almost like you want to take as much risk as possible the earlier you are in life, and understand that like that means also that there's a higher probability that you lose it all. But at 20, it didn't matter, right? Now I thought that, whatever money I had, I was, like, oh my God, I can't lose this. But in the grand scheme of things, actually, you want to take as much risk as possible.
It's interesting that Bitcoin, I tweeted about this, like there's probably 3 ways, pretty direct ways that you can gain wealth, right? You can inherit it, come up with an amazing idea. Those ideas have idea babies, and you're the best in the world at executing on that idea. And you can monetize that, and then you just rinse and repeat it. And then finally, if you have some assets, small even, and you make a really super focused outside investment, like what we're kind of talking about in Bitcoin, you can create some real wealth. And that's what you're saying, right? You're saying it doesn't even take a lot of money here. You just have to have conviction. And you're making a choice like, do I buy a car at 20 or do I buy Bitcoin? You're saying I buy Bitcoin and then I just hold it. The car is a depreciating asset. Bitcoin could really be something interesting. And that's what you're kind of saying, right?
Absolutely. It goes to this idea that investing is not hard, right? Like Bill Perkins said this on the podcast the other day, and I thought it was so great. He said, investing is a psychology test. And it's actually not a psychology test. Like, and if you overlay that with like a Warren Buffett or Charlie Munger, like actually we don't try to be the smartest in the room. We try not to be stupid, right? And so if you think of investing right now, if I said to you, okay, what are the keys to financial success? There's like 4 things. Spend less than you make, have multiple streams of income, put your wealth into assets that can't be inflated away, right? And then do things that are high leverage in terms of you're not just trading your time for money. Like those 4 rules, if you follow them and actually implement them, you don't have to be a genius and you'll be incredibly wealthy. But what ends up happening is people literally who just heard that will say, well, what do those 4 things mean? So they don't know. So they got to educate themselves. 2, they then say, how do I implement them? And then 3 is it's boring. Like that's what people don't realize is a lot of wealth building is actually very boring. It's just about discipline and following simple rules. And so I tend to think that that's where, people struggle, is that it is so boring.
So check this out, a little housekeeping at the top of the hour. It looks like we have 29 minutes until the halving, which is interesting.
Awesome. I have people texting me saying that we have more people in the live stream right now. What do we have? We got 2,500 people in here watching live, and supposedly Binance, CZ, I love you, but Binance only has 850 people in their live stream right now.
Nah, CZ's watching this. I got him right here. Hey, what's up, CZ? I got you. Hey, but can you do me a favor and tweet the or would you?
I'm gonna post them in the comments right now. Go ahead.
Yeah. I need you to post the Gemini link.
You don't know this. I've been posting it the whole time.
All right. I'm just making sure. Make sure you, and there's a cool kind of giveaway from BlockFi. So if you'll post that as well, that would be cool. And I just want to make sure that we are in fact 28 minutes away. So if people that are out there watching this more closely, because I'm literally watching bitcoinblockhalf.com to get a sense of when the reward drop happens.
Give us your 2 minutes on BlockFi.
2 minutes on BlockFi.
Yeah. Why do you like them?
Yeah. Again, if you're holding crypto assets, you can have them in cold wallets. You certainly shouldn't have them in a hot wallet unless you're trading. But if you want to try to gain some interest on it, so get your money to make money, and that's part of the game in creating wealth, I think BlockFi is a really great option. So it's a place that you can keep some of your Bitcoin. They have, operational security options that, are very good, if not institutional grade. They've got insurance backing some losses, which is also good. It gives you some comfort. And then if you're holding cash and you have it in a money market, certainly a safe investment. But if you're willing to take on some more risk, putting that cash into a stable token, electronic version or digital token like GUSD makes a lot of sense. And for me, I've said this before, I have some cash, I hold GUSD, I'm making 8.6% APY on that. That's a no-brainer. I came out of the stock market 10 months ago now, Pomp.
Yep.
10 months ago, I may have given up some upside, but I didn't have to deal with this, economic crash. It was out. I thought it was, stock market had a lot of zombie companies, and the S&P seemed like it was run up really high, 11-year bull run. And so, I rebalanced everything. And I'll tell you, it's given me a lot of comfort with all that's happened, shutting down startups, seeing people out of work. For me to have that 8.6% on my money has, it was kind of luck, but also, it feels good to have that. So anyway, I think BlockFi is a really, really good option. I haven't used their lending feature yet, but I think they're doing 50% LTV loans. So if you don't want to sell your crypto and you want to take a loan, again, that option's there. I think you're approved rather quickly. It's all done electronically. So check it out.
Absolutely. And then I see multiple people asking other options than Coinbase. Gemini. Here's my whole pitch on Gemini.
Hey, and by the way, we're investors in Coinbase.
Yeah. Look, I just think that you can't have a product go down.
And right? I'm not going to shill or endorse something. We've got money in Coinbase, a lot of money, and I don't use it.
Yeah. And it's just at the end of the day, what you end up seeing is...
Get at me and let's figure it out, Coinbase.
So I think that Gemini, the whole point here is they basically have a product where it is the most important thing in the market is to have trust, right? Trust is the product. And what does that mean? That means you don't go down. That means that you constantly have liquidity, and it means that you have security, right? And I think that they were one of the first people to understand the way that you build trust is you have all the SOC audits on the security side, and you say, look, they had a whole campaign around crypto needs rules, right? And there's two ways to look at that. There's plenty of people who say, we should have full sovereignty. There should be no KYC, AML, all of these different things. And there's an element, even I agree with that. But at the same time, that unfortunately is not the rules of today, right? The financial system rules are that they have to have that stuff. And so I think that what Gemini has been able to do in terms of, providing a very safe environment for people is incredibly important. And they've kind of done things the right way, right? If you think about it from, they've been around a long time. They have not rushed to add every asset in the world. They only recently started to add some
trading
other
pairs.
Yes, some other assets there, but trust is the product, right? And I think that that's really compelling. And then the other thing that we should say is, so we're investors in BlockFi, obviously big fans. We use Gemini as well, and then BlockFi and Gemini have a partnership, right? Where actually all of the BlockFi crypto is stored with Gemini. So Gemini is providing the custody there, and so there's a lot of trust between those two companies, I think, as well.
Definitely.
All right, listen, there's tons of questions coming in. I know you guys have all been asking. I've been ignoring you on purpose, but I'm going to run through and we're going to try to answer as many of these as we can. Let's see here. Pomp Pomp, what is your preferred mobile wallet? Are there any good ones? Jason is the expert, the in-house expert. What would you say is the best mobile wallet?
I use Trust Wallet.
Trust Wallet. That's owned by Binance, right?
Yep, I think it's really cool. I think, you know, I also have messed around with Binance Dex, so you might want to check that out, but Trust Wallet is good.
All right. Jason's handlebar goatee is winning this stream. Eric, we hear you, man. We definitely hear you.
Nova Gratz, thank you.
They said 3% alcohol got you hyped up.
Nah, I haven't even finished 1/3 of that beer. I'm always hyped.
What do we think of investing in uranium mining? What do you think about that?
I haven't thought of it. You go. I'll think about it.
So uranium and lithium,
Yeah.
there's a whole bunch of reasons as to why those are going to be valuable. I have no clue about the prospects of mining it.
Battery tech and nuclear weapons.
Yeah, well, not only nuclear weapons, but also I think isn't uranium mining used for nuclear power?
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Nuclear and battery tech.
Yeah, I will say I had Mark Schneider come on. He was a former nuclear engineer in the Navy. He came on and gave me like a 101 course on the podcast around nuclear power. I was blown away by how much I didn't understand it, and also how many preconceived notions I had that were inaccurate.
Bro, we're living a lie. America makes so much power, like so much power. We don't turn it on. Like, you know,
Right.
a certain portion of the world's in the dark for no reason. We could turn the lights on in the world and probably not even use fossil fuels, but yeah, keep going.
Yeah, it makes no sense. Are we looking at the clock? Yes, we're watching the clock. What else?
22 minutes.
The percentage on BlockFi for Bitcoin interest, I think, is 6% right now. Right?
Yeah, but it's a certain number of Bitcoin. Is it less than 5?
Yeah, it changes.
And then it drops. Yeah, and then I think less than 5, it drops to like 2 and change percent above 5.
Oh, here's a great question. DCA or lump sum? If you have money that you want to deploy, how do you think about either deploying all of it at once or dollar cost averaging?
You go.
So if you had asked me this question 6 months ago, I would have told you DCA into an asset like Bitcoin, just because there's so much volatility. I recently read something, I believe it's Dollars and Data. I think Nick wrote it. And he talks all about should you lump sum or should you dollar cost average? And he had a bunch of math in there that made a very compelling argument as to why you should do a lump sum. The only thing that I will say is I think that lump sum type investment makes a lot of sense for an asset that is not nearly as volatile as Bitcoin. Dollar cost average, we dollar cost average in our funds. Jason dollar cost averages. I tend to think that when you have a highly volatile asset, that's the best way to go.
Yeah, I agree.
You agree?
I mean, having the discipline to have your debt to income ratios in a situation that you have cash or you have a stable token that you can convert to Bitcoin, you know, that is a strategy in and of itself. And that's what I'm using. I'm sitting there with cash and stable tokens and just taking positions as I go.
Yeah, people are asking about why is BlockFi not in New York. So for those that don't know, New York State has
New York license.
Financial services. They've got something. What the hell is it? Oh shit, I'm gonna forget. The bit license.
The money transfer license or bit license.
Yeah, bit license. It's basically a special license that you need. You have to apply and get it from the DFS in New York. They've only given out, I don't know, 30 of them or so far. But I definitely think that they'll get it at some point, just as a process. And then once they get it, they'll be able to go ahead and offer in New York. Bitcoin mining. They want to know about mining. You want to talk at all about PRTI and mining?
Yeah. So, you know, at PRTI, we take trash tires and we get paid per pound for these trash tires that would normally be thrown out in a landfill or chopped up and used as like rubberized surfaces or pellets for a soccer field. And we break them down into constituent parts that they're made. So a tire's got synthetic gas, oil, it's got carbon black, it's got steel, it's got Kevlar and fabric in it. When you heat it to a certain temperature, it goes from a semi-solid to a gas vapor. You can take that vapor stream and you can condense it into a liquid fuel that's combustible. You get a synthetic gas that you can combust as well, and then you're left with carbon. It can be burned at like 10,000 BTU, which is like a mid-grade Appalachian coal. You can load that all into some combustion situation and create steam or energy. And what we do with power that we make at PRTI is we mine Bitcoin and Ethereum, specifically Ethereum with GPUs. And mining is the backbone of these networks. So every 10 minutes, 12.5 Bitcoin are awarded to the network. And if you contribute hash, which is essentially taking those computers that are specifically made to do this computation, backed by power, you compete for your portion of those block rewards. And, you know, Bitcoin can be very profitable if you do it the right way. Mining can be very profitable if you set up correctly.
They're asking why we say don't buy Bitcoin or crypto with your credit card.
It's just well, why don't you go and then I'll go.
It's just super volatile. You're using somebody else's money to buy an asset that may or may not have the same value in the future. And so I don't think you want to use money that you're paying in many cases, 18 to 24% on to buy an asset that could drop in value.
That's my point. It's if you're using leverage, that's just it's very expensive leverage. When you're doing a real estate transaction and you're using leverage, I mean, we're negotiating after putting 20% down on a real estate project, somewhere between 2.75 and 3.25%, right? I'm willing to take leverage at that point because I can service the debt. The problem is with Bitcoin, you can at 18% with, it's highly volatile and you can be in a really tough situation if you can't service the debt.
Yeah. There's a bunch of questions all asking, where was it? Hold on. About the ETFs, the GBTC and retirement accounts. How do you think about that?
Early on, and still may be the case, if you had an IRA and you wanted to get some exposure to Bitcoin, GBTC was your only option. So, I own GBTC, and full disclosure, and I paid a lot for it. It's expensive. I don't know if it still has the premium it did when I bought it, but it had a 25%, 30% premium on it. I don't know what it is now. Do you know that offhand, Pomp?
I think it's still around 10%, but it
dropped.
It dropped.
Yeah, so it dropped. But so if you want some exposure and you're able to do it, you can transfer. You could buy GBTC through your Roth IRA.
100% of my retirement account is in GBTC.
Mine too.
I mean, look, it's the retirement accounts for somebody my age, right? I can't get it for 30 years. It's such a binary outcome, right? Mm-hmm. It sounds, some people are saying the premium was 30% on Friday. I don't know if that's right or not.
Yeah, so it was 30% when I did this back in
19% today, they're saying.
All right, but back in, I think it was like 2017, something like that, 2017, 2018, I went all in on GBTC, but I was paying a 30% premium. It was before it split. So I don't know when it split either. Does anyone know that offhand?
I do not know. Let's see here. What else?
Bitcoin's 84.64, so it's bouncing around that range still. And we got
he's gonna stay somewhere right around there.
I think so, man. I think this is it. It's 15 minutes, man.
All right. So a couple of things, more housekeeping. One, if you're watching this right now, this says 2,600 people on here. I would love to get to 3,000 at some point. Please hit the like button so that more people on YouTube see it. Go tweet the link, do whatever you want, but help us get to 3,000 simply because then I can go and tell everyone that we had more people on our stream than anybody else, which will just be a nice flex for the internet. Two is—
Did anybody watch that Kraken VR thing? That was pretty cool.
I think people did.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I saw Travis Kling. He's a boss. He needs to join our team. He's on our team, son. Travis Kling.
We have 2 blocks to go. Maybe when the halving occurs, we'll have Polina come over here and say hello. She's shaking her head no, saying don't use me as a pawn. Maybe we'll have her come over here.
Prop.
And if you like the, oh, wow, a bunch of you just like the video. You guys are awesome. We appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe to the channel as well, so that you can get notifications when we do this more. There are 2 blocks left. Here's my 2 questions for you as we wait out the next 20 minutes or so. 1, what would have to change for Bitcoin? What would have to change in the Bitcoin environment for you to change your mind and think that we do not have, or Bitcoin's not the future? Like, what would have to change? By the way, while you're thinking, I'll buy you some time while you're eating and thinking, because you're on mute right now. Somebody just texted me and said, we're number 2. Oh, Joe Cloak has just texted me. Joe, what up? Way to get this hooked up. We're number 2 on YouTube's auto-generated live channel for technology. Can we get to number 1? Joe, if it happens, screenshot it. Let's see who. Polina immediately asked, who's number 1?
Peter Schiff.
Now the Roy Lab stats coronavirus pandemic real-time counter.
Oh, come on, man. We can't
we
beat coronavirus. We can't beat
pandemic.
Come on, we can beat coronavirus. Come on. Hey, wait. You got to get a beer.
Huh?
You have to have a beer. You've been drinking water.
You're going to kill me?
Yeah, no beer, right?
Well, I have one better. I have liquor.
All right, but you have to have a drink. You have to have a glass of wine. Yeah. So you got to get something. You got to get something.
I will. I'll have a shot when it comes. It caught me.
That's hardcore.
This was supposed to happen tonight.
I know.
Chicken wings. Or
I'm telling you.
Things. All right, wait. What would have to happen for you to change your mind on Bitcoin?
Well, I think a hack of the actual Bitcoin kind of protocol, not something external, but actually, something taking down the network, exposing some kind of flaw inside, because people try to claim that there has been some type of issue with the protocol historically, but I think that could be devastating to the whole ecosystem. I mean, what do you think?
I think a self-imposed wound, meaning that during the development process, a bug is introduced and goes undiscovered, and somebody exploits it. So it's kind of like, there's some sort of technical attack, but it's actually through something that is self-imposed by accident.
Yeah, and you know what else could be really hard for Bitcoin is if ASIC miners become illegal to bring into the United States due to, just paranoia and conspiracy theories about backdoors and China building this computing, force in the United States. I think that could potentially hurt Bitcoin as well. So I wonder how many nation states would follow our lead. Uh-oh, it's getting real. It's getting real.
Polina, by the way, is giving me the most disproving look in the world. Sorry.
Well, why is that?
She said it's 4 p.m. I said, actually, she doesn't know it's only 3:15. All right, second question for you. Who do you think Satoshi is?
Well, it's not Craig Wright. Right?
I agree.
Okay, it's not Craig Wright. And I recently put a poll up that said it could be Peter Schiff, but that was a joke. It's not Peter Schiff. And the poll actually said edamame was Satoshi. Out of edamame.
Who's that?
It's like a soy-based protein that you eat.
Oh, like the thing that you get with sushi?
Well, you can get it with sushi. Have you ever had edamame?
I think it's edamame, right?
Oh, don't even try it. Edamame?
Yeah, edamame.
It may be edamame, but it won out of the poll. Edamame beat Peter Schiff and Craig Wright as Satoshi.
Well, it probably has a better chance of being Satoshi than either one of those.
I think Satoshi was a think tank.
A think tank?
Yeah, I think it was a group. I think Satoshi was a group of people. I don't think it was one person.
Why? Oh, you want to know who's on the stream?
Who? Peter Schiff.
Joe Lorenzo.
Hey, Uncle Joe, what's up? Shout out to Uncle Joe, fireman from New York City. Uncle Joe taught me everything I know about investing.
Everyone go find Joe Lorenzo in the comments.
Shout out to Uncle Joe.
I love it.
Yeah.
All
No,
right.
I think it could have been a think tank, man. Like this, the way DARPA works and the way, you know, I don't know if you guys saw that like Lazar thing about Area 51. I think it's like spaceships and Area 51 on Netflix. All of this stuff like blows my mind. Like when you see stealth technology was like invented in 1974. And when we started the war in Iraq, there were like spaceships that you couldn't detect on radar flying around. And you know, that's like 20-year-old tech. Now, because we're so numb to news, like the Pentagon confirms, yeah, they're UFOs. Nobody even cares. You know, it's snowing in May in New York. It's just nobody says anything about that. Like, I don't know what's going on, man. So could Satoshi be a think tank? Yes, a group locked down like Area 51, only to be known, what, 40 years from now? Or whenever they release that information? That's my thing. Or it could have been one person who's dead.
Listen, we got about 1 block to go. We got 2,890 people watching this thing.
You can take that shot.
We need, and listen, when the halving happens, we're taking shots. I want everyone to go and like the video, go tweet it, do whatever, get us to 3,000. We're 100 people away from 3,000 concurrent people.
Hey, I got 8 minutes.
8 minutes for what?
The halving.
Yeah, look, we're good to go.
8 minutes. 8 minutes. I got the count.
Ready to roll.
Is that a full shot?
Here's what I want to see in the comments. Yes or no? Should we make Polina come over here and say hello?
I want Polina to take a shot. Got to take a shot on camera for the halving.
Are we going 2,920? Are we going to get Polina on the live stream before the halving? And are we all going to take a shot or not? Let's see.
And Bitcoin's holding. It's 85.24 on the 1 hour. I mean, what does it look like on the 4-hour chart?
Ooh, Jared Thompson, I see you with the rum and Coke. Now we're getting people telling us what they're drinking.
All right, get him up. Get him up.
Oh, wow. When I asked about Polina, I can't keep up with the comments. It's just yes. Millions of yes.
Come on, Polina.
All right, come on. Yeah, come on over.
Yeah, we're all right. It's time to ask Polina some questions.
Somebody said you should do a body shot off my Bitcoin belly. Oh, 2,975. We're so close.
How do I get there?
All right. Are you coming in here?
7 minutes. 7 minutes. Hey, what's up, Polina?
There she is.
All right, you got to introduce her.
The people want to know.
Wait. Before you do that, you got to introduce her like you do on Lunch Money.
Oh, the beautiful and intelligent Polina Marinova wearing today her skiing outfit, ready to go.
Snowing in New York.
All right.
Why can't I see myself?
Oh, we're so close to 3,000. So close. 2,994. Did you bring a bunch of people with you?
Yeah.
That's where
She
you
always
are.
does.
But we're looking over here. 3,000. There we go.
Sorry.
Let's
You're yelling
go.
in my ear.
That's fine. All right. What do you have to say to the people about Bitcoin? What is Bitcoin?
Bitcoin is an asymmetric, non-correlated asset.
How many Bitcoin total are there?
21 million.
What's happening today?
The halving.
What's the halving?
When it splits in half.
What splits in half?
The mining.
But how many are there going to be after the halving every day?
8,000.
No.
800.
Close.
80.
No. Too low. 900.
900.
1,800 to 900. You get like a B plus on the
Hi,
test.
Jason.
Hi.
How are you?
Doing good. Doing good.
All right. They're all saying they're Lunch Money fans.
Oh.
Yeah.
6 minutes.
She learns. She's gorgeous. She's a keeper.
Okay,
bang, bang.
okay.
LOL. Polina, take a shot. Should we all take a shot together?
I'm not.
Come on, Polina. This is a big event. It's like the Olympics.
I have a personal brand to uphold.
What?
I don't, what? Oh,
Maybe
okay.
taking shots,
Here's
like, I'm
here's the
on
ultimate
spring,
question. Same question I asked Jason.
I
Who
said-
do you think Satoshi is?
It's a woman.
Ooh. Satoshi
Hot
is
take.
Do you know why I think Satoshi's a woman?
why?
Because there is not a man in history that would be able to keep his ego so right to have all this come out. The guy
Untrue.
would be like,
He'd
I,
have to take a lap.
of course I invented it. The woman would be like, I'm smarter than that.
Wow.
That is the hot take of all hot takes. I love it.
Wait, should I leave?
No, why don't you get a chair and sit down? Get a drink.
Rakia.
Oh yeah, the rakia. That's the Bulgarian liquor.
I can't sit over here.
They love Bulgarian liquor.
Can you move this way?
Oh, are you taking over?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is Bulgarian liquor clear or brown?
It's like yellow. It's like grape. I don't know. Somebody in the comments can explain it better.
Rakia, it's basically just really super strong
Oh wait, where are you going?
liquor.
Hi,
Really,
guys.
really super strong liquor.
But it's made from grapes?
Yes,
Kind of.
or grains.
It's
I don't know.
Grains. Okay, interesting. So it's not like moonshine.
It's
Because
like moonshine.
the moonshine. Okay,
It's like ouzo, kind of. Oh,
interesting.
Hey guys, big day today though. I got pants on. I'm not wearing sweatpants shorts.
okay.
Whoa.
Nobody needs to see that.
Every single day I've been wearing sweatpants shorts. All right, we're good to go. Are we ready for this?
For what?
We're probably one block away from the Halving.
Wait,
4 minutes.
people.
4 minutes.
4
There's some.
minutes.
All right, 3,170 people. Wow. Lots of Bulgarians in the comments, of course. What are we doing in your house? I don't think we're in your house. Jason's in his own house.
8560.
8560. Oh, we got people from Turkey. How about this? I want
3,000
every single person to leave a comment right now where you're tuning in from, and I'll read them out.
Oh my god.
What city, state, or country are you coming from? Let's see if we can do this real quick. Blue tie. They want me to put the blue tie on. Oh, there you go. There's the halving. It just halved. I believe the halving just occurred.
Oh my god.
Bang, bang.
Hallelujah.
Happy
All right.
halving to everyone.
Shot. Cheers.
Shots for everybody.
No.
You don't want any?
No.
Happy halving.
Did it happen?
I think it just happened.
Oh, Bulgaria.
It said 3 minutes.
Netherlands, Sweden, Germany, Long Island, UK, England, Australia, Colorado, Boston, London, San Francisco, Florida, Rochester, Kansas City, Norway, Costa Rica, Poland, Cincinnati, Los Angeles, Italy. Holy shit, I can't keep up. Summerfield, London,
ATL.
Florida, Chicago, Minnesota, London, ATL, Ethiopia, Japan, Italy, South Africa,
Okay.
Melbourne.
Hey, is Coinbase working?
What?
Is Coinbase working?
All right, real quick, while everyone's still paying attention, quick housekeeping items. 1, like the video. 2, subscribe. 3, there's 2 sponsors. The first is Gemini. Gemini provides awesome institutional cryptocurrency exchange and custody. I'll post it in the comments. Go check them out, sign up for an account, buy crypto there, store crypto there if you want as well. 2, BlockFi. You can give them crypto. They'll give you a US dollar loan, or you can give them crypto. They'll pay you a very high interest rate, up to 8.6% APY in an interest-bearing account on your crypto. Jason and I are both users and big fans of both of those companies. So please go check them out. They've been awesome in helping us put this together, and it would mean a ton to us and to them if you guys go ahead and check all of that out.
Yeah, and download their new apps.
Oh, a lot of
Yes, they
people.
both have new mobile apps.
Well, Gemini's not new, but it's good. And BlockFi's is new, and it's good too.
Dude, I can't keep up. There's people still leaving all the places that they're from.
Get
Northern
money, get
Ireland,
paid.
Holland.
Incredible.
Alex Cern said, Polina, get money, get paid. Are you
Get-
starting a movement without us?
Get money, get paid.
I
Wait,
s-
does Jason not know this?
I
Well,
said-
no, it sounds like she joined like Bad Boys. It's like she's part of like a crew. Is that like she's showing Wheezy? Get money,
Oh.
get paid.
So here's the story behind Get Money, Get Paid. One day we're sitting on the couch. I'm just watching some video on my computer, and she just looks over at me, and I look at her like, "Can I help you?" And she hits me with, "Get money, get paid." And I said, "What?" And she goes, "I don't know. That just came in my head. I had to say it."
He goes, "Where'd you hear that?" I was like, "In my head."
Barcelona, Halifax, Nova Scotia, Colombia, Dubai, Azerbaijan.
God.
Oh man, I'm gonna fuck that.
Azerbaijan.
Yeah, I think that's where Murad's from.
Macedonia.
Man, there's people from all over the world. This shit's
Amazing.
global, everyone. I love that.
Yep.
I love it. All right, what else should we talk about?
Why are you being so loud? Jason,
I have a loud voice.
what do you want to talk about?
Well, I'm actually pretty surprised that Bitcoin's 8,500, 8,548, it really has done pretty much nothing coming through the halving here, and it held its value. My $6,800 call was wrong. I never got to buy cheap Bitcoin. I'm a little disappointed, but
It may not be over.
it may not be over, but man, I wonder what's going on in a lot of miners' minds right now.
Why is it supposed to go down?
Well, the economics just got real difficult potentially for a lot of people, right? They're only making half as much money.
Yeah.
So maybe what does the hash rate look like right now? Actually, that could be interesting. Blockchain.com has some analytics on mining. That may be interesting.
All right, I have no clue what it is.
Go back. I can't see.
No. Polina loves looking at the comments. She
I
loves
love the
reading what
people.
people are talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I literally can't keep up. There's so many people commenting, I can't keep up. Which is good.
So it looks like we're at like a new all-time high in terms of total hash, which is pretty
Jan
amazing.
said, "You know why the price isn't going down? No one is selling."
Ooh. Yeah, that's true.
People are telling us, "All right, see you guys in 4 years."
Happy having from Bulgaria.
Yeah, it's global. So it looks like there is 136 million terahash a second right now.
There goes the price.
Ooh, Netherblood YouTube commenter, Polina, you look fully vested.
Oh,
That was a good comment. That was a good one. Oh, here's another joke. Get jailed, Polina.
But I don't have the stripes.
It's all right. We all know you have it.
Thanks for the profile.
Polina is the people person. Jason, I think that's a shot at us.
Oh no.
hey, why don't you pitch Polina's work?
No, it's
No,
okay.
Polina's gonna pitch.
No, you gotta pitch.
I'm bad at pitching.
Let's go. Shark
go.
Tank.
Shark Tank. All right. So I write something called The Profile, which is a weekly newsletter, and it features the most interesting long form profiles, audio clips, videos on successful people and companies. Was that
Polina,
good?
I got one question for you.
Yeah.
If I read this, when is it? How often is it written?
You'll get smarter. You'll get money, get paid.
That's what I was going to say. If I read this, will I get money, get paid?
Yeah.
All right. Very good. Very good.
People are saying that Polina's rocking the Patagucci.
Patagucci.
Oh, man.
I'm trying to hide the little, I know you guys don't like brands and labels.
Jason's got a Black Rifle shirt on.
Black Rifle Coffee.
Oh.
Big
that's
supporter.
Cool. Patagonia.
You know what that is?
Who?
Black Rifle Coffee.
Coffee.
Yeah, but it's like a
With
special
butter?
type. I think actually, yeah. Isn't
Oh,
that one of their big things? They're one of the people who
Well,
push.
veteran owned. They're all like operators that they got some really cool coffee shops for veterans and active duty military. Sell good coffee.
Oh, that's awesome.
I don't think they do bulletproof coffee. If that's what you're asking, the one with butter in it.
Yeah. I'm not.
Yeah, they may. It's just regular coffee.
Yeah. Cool. We should get some.
Yeah, a cup of Joe for some Joes.
Cup of Joe.
That's not a bad motto.
Not a bad one. I don't think that's their motto.
So now people are saying that the motto for this stream is "Get money, get paid."
You always got to get money, get paid.
That is true. That is true. All right. So now that we're through the halving and it actually successfully occurred, what do we think is?
Hey, that's not just a kind of not a big event. That's a big deal, actually, right? Programmatically, without like nothing broke, the world didn't end, like life's going on, but something pretty dramatic happened, right?
So
Listen, I couldn't agree more. Go
can I
ahead.
say something about Bitcoin that I learned?
Please.
I thought it was interesting what Paul Tudor Jones said on CNBC is that he said every day that goes by that Bitcoin doesn't break, more trust is earned, right?
That's right.
Yeah, sure. Lindy effect is what it's called.
Lindy.
Lindy. No, look, I think I actually said in a couple of interviews over the last couple of months, I said, look, the first risk of Bitcoin is that the halving has to occur. If the halving didn't just occur, people would be freaking out.
Wait, why?
If we got to that block and the halving didn't execute, it would have been mass chaos because people would be worried about what's wrong. Why didn't the code execute? It's not programmatically doing what it's supposed to do, whatever. So there's an element of Bitcoin has to do what it's intended to do in order to drive value.
Yeah.
Right? Well, bang, there we go. It just did what it was supposed to do. I already tweeted and I said, Bitcoin's third halving successfully executed. Bitcoin's the most transparent, predictable monetary policy in the world.
I like that it's so consistent and you can trust it. You know?
It's true. Right?
Yeah.
Hey, Pomp, what do you think about my statement that like Satoshi was a genius because he created this amazing marketing event that is the halving? And people took shots at me for that. They were like, nah, this ain't marketing. What do you think about that kind of that thought?
I think that it's like, it's a chicken or egg thing, right? Did he create it because it's a marketing event or does it become a marketing event because it's part of the monetary policy?
I don't know, but it's so hard to assign all of the genius moments to one person because think about what we're doing right now. Essentially, the world is watching an algorithmic change to monetary policy associated with Bitcoin that is essentially an event. It's like the Olympics to me.
Even the Olympics got canceled.
But
It doesn't get canceled, right?
Is that your argument? Is that the Bitcoin halving didn't get canceled by the pandemic?
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yo, Jason, you want to know what I'm tweeting right now?
Oh, no.
Oh,
Hit
no.
me with it. Hit me with it.
Yo, Peter Schiff, Bitcoin has a lower inflation rate than gold now. Just saying.
Uh-oh. Shots fired.
Fact. Big
Shots
fact.
fired.
Big fact, though.
He was taking laps this morning. Did you see him?
Yeah. Listen, I like Peter a lot. You asked me about him earlier. The reason why I like Peter a lot is because I actually think Peter's been really, really right about a lot of aspects of the financial system. He called the 2008-2009 crisis perfectly. He was starting to sound the alarm about there being over leverage in the system, et cetera now. So I think that he is very, very intelligent. I think that he's just missing the last 10% of his analysis, which is great. All of that is the problem. What are the assets that are going to do well? I think he got gold right, but I think that he's missing Bitcoin in that analysis. And if he would just add Bitcoin alongside gold, doesn't replace gold, but if alongside it, then we would be rocking and rolling. And I think that he would be a bona fide Bitcoiner, but it's hard for him to do that because he just missed, right? He knew about it so early. He can't imagine buying Bitcoin at $8,500 when he knew about it at $10.
We've come across some interesting characters. I mean, we had lunch with Dennis Gartman, and I've been personally blocked by Nouriel Roubini. I'm not. Yeah, you have too. And that was wild. But I think he took a lap recently as well with something that I think it was the 15% drawdown that happened like last night. They were all sputtering about how this thing is going to zero.
Yeah. I mean, look, by the way, that's great. But you know what ends up happening, right? Is at the end of the day, nobody cares what their opinion is, or frankly, what your and my opinion is. At the end of the day, the market decides the winners and losers. And the market has decided that Bitcoin has value. It's actually decided that Bitcoin has $170 billion of value on a market cap basis. And regardless of what you, me, Peter Schiff, Nouriel Roubini, or anybody else thinks, the market's going to decide what the future value is, right? So it's less about you and I being right. And it's more about us trying to figure out what does the market think in the coming months and years.
So I've got a question for you, because this is something I was really thinking about post-halving. If there wasn't a like amazing kind of unknown that happened post-halving, it looks like the price is stuck around 8,500, let's just say. Is that the new floor of Bitcoin?
I don't know if it's the new floor, but I definitely think that it is it is an important number. What I would say is the miners are going to determine the floor more than anybody.
Right, because I was thinking the miners would determine the number to be 6,800. Is this the number? Is this the number?
6,800?
I did kind of my own back of the envelope analysis to try to determine what the price to mine Bitcoin was, around the world, taking into event all the information I had. And I felt like it was between 5,000 and 6,800. The best in class do it and can be profitable way cheaper, some much higher, but I really felt like Bitcoin couldn't exist at 3,000. It would knock out most of the hash rate.
Yeah, I think that it's this really weird thing of there will be periodic dips below that rate. But like we saw most miners capitulate when in December 2018, we dropped to 3K, right?
Yeah, right.
But not everyone capitulated, one. And then two is there's some miners who actually mined at a negative price point because they had believed it was going to recover relatively quickly.
Right.
And so then when it came back, they were mining profitably, right? And then the appreciation of the Bitcoin, even though it was a unit economic negative in the short term, over a long period of time, it ended up being a positive.
Right. But check it out though. Like you had, if you go to your 4-hour chart and you look at what just happened, you had this, I don't know what happened on April 28th. I think we tried to unpack that, right? But right around April 28th, we were at 7,600. Bitcoin ripped all the way up to 90, 95. Then it dropped back down to 88. And then it hit 10,000, right? Yep. So you had this big pre-halving buy the rumor event, in my opinion. And I was expecting it to sell the news. And it kind of did, right? On May 11th, it sold the news down to 8,000. So we lost $2,000 in value of Bitcoin during that time period. I thought there would be a big miner capitulation puke. Could that still be coming?
It's possible. I mean, look, there's a bunch of miners who just ran into a wall, right? Mm-hmm. The question is, do they capitulate immediately? Did they all just turn off their machines and the lagging indicator will be, we'll see hash rate drop? Is there going to be over some period of time, let's say the next week, we see that? Or is it over like a 6 to 8 week period?
Well, I think every 2000, isn't it every 2016 blocks, you have a difficulty adjustment, which is about every 2 weeks, right? So yep. 2 weeks from now, we will know, will we know, or do we know now, looking at hash rate, if there was a capitulation and a hash rate drop? Because that would be correlated directly, right?
Yeah, it begs the question of, does hash rate indicate price, like lead price, or does price lead hash rate?
I mean, I think that's interesting to think about. How do you determine the price of Bitcoin? Like what do you use as metrics to try to determine the price if you're doing research?
You want my smart ass answer? I look at the chart and
yeah.
It tells me what the market price is. Now, I think how do you determine what the future price is going to be is I don't worry about it, right? Like that's part, I think that's my advantage. Like if somebody asked me, I think it was last week, so what's your advantage? Why do you participate in that market? Why do you think you have an advantage? And I said, well, my greatest advantage is that I actually have the lowest time preference out of most of the people in the market. And therefore I can have the most control over my psychology and emotions. And therefore I can allow to not do anything when everyone else is either panicking on the drops or FOMOing on the rises.
Do you remember 2017 though, when you panicked?
Well, that was on the way up. That was FOMO.
Wait, it was on the way up. No, when I said it will go up, because you were like,
oh, that was like 3 weeks ago. When Bitcoin dropped 50%, I was like, whoa. I literally was sitting here like
staring off into space.
I was shook.
He was contemplating life.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
those are some of my favorite calls when he calls me. It could be like 4 a.m, 7 a.m. He's like, bro.
But rather than do the thing that my emotion said to do, I did the opposite and I bought.
I love that, man.
right? And it's just like, it's this deep-seated belief of like, I've done the work, I have a thesis, nothing for the thesis has changed. If price drops, that's actually a discount. That is not a change in value.
Go back to the people.
Which is really, really hard to do when it drops 50%.
You know, one other piece of advice for people who are here in this Bitcoin space, it's really important to have like a friend, like a wingman in this, because it's so emotional. There's so many times that like Pomp talks me off the ledge, you know, I'm about to do something dumb, and I'm sure it's vice versa, but find a wingman or wingwoman.
Speaking of wing woman, people are asking Polina to scratch her head twice if she needs help. She ain't scratching her head.
Scratch her head twice if she needs help.
Get out of here, you clowns.
Do you need my expertise or should I go?
What expertise do you have to contribute? She actually knows way more about Bitcoin than most people, which is pretty funny.
Who's the better cook?
Oh, me.
And baking?
Yeah. Except we're not baking now because I made sugarless muffins the other day, but he claims, what? They're good. Are you serious?
Polina is a fantastic cook. She's only ever messed up 2 meals. The first meal she ever cooked, where she made dehydrated pasta, which wasn't so great, was bad. We got off to a bad start there. And then the second meal she messed up was like 3 days ago when she hit us with some, was it sugarless muffins? But
I undercooked them or underbaked them.
Yeah. Like cookies, that's good. You know, when you pick up a cookie and it's kind of melting a little bit, you're like, oh man, that's gonna be a great cookie. If you try it with muffins, you won't have the same idea. Jason has pizza right now. He's eating like 2 slices.
Jason, I saw people were saying that your pizza looks great.
It was actually pretty good, and it's cauliflower based.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was good. How did you guys meet?
Does that make it better?
It makes it gluten-free.
People are saying that you're trying to poison me.
Not before the halving.
That's
I wouldn't do that.
Oh, okay. You're only trying to poison me after the fact? Is that right? Yeah. All right. All right. We're gonna take. Let's do till 3:55. We'll do 9 more minutes. Anybody who has questions, send them right now in the comments, and I'll fire them at Jason, and we'll see what we can answer for you guys.
How many people did we have view at the height of this, Pomp?
3,100 people.
Not bad.
Yeah, they said when Polina came on, the price of Bitcoin jumped. But you're drinking a Miller Lite, which isn't gluten-free. They're giving you shit.
That's right. I don't have a gluten intolerance.
If you keep asking her what Bitcoin is every podcast, the undercooked muffins will continue.
That's fire.
All right, we're gonna give the people what they want.
They want a magic trick.
Are you ready? Are you ready for this conversation? They want to know what we think of XRP. There, you guys happy? We're going to talk about XRP. Sure, we're happy to talk about it.
So, okay, can I say from my experience?
Yeah. What do you have XRP?
Yes. So we go back.
I love it.
So basically what happened was I curated.
Do I want to hear the story? Is this a safe story to tell people? Okay.
I curated my Twitter. That was really, really nice. And then one time he tagged me in something with XRP. And then I got all sorts of XRP people coming at me, and I didn't know. The army.
XRP army came after you?
I don't know.
What did they say to you?
Well, it was a lot of like women with like not a lot of clothes.
And what were they saying?
I don't know.
That XRP army sounds like an interesting group.
How was your experience?
Yes, I don't know what that was about.
All right, Jason, what do you think?
I don't know. I haven't had that same experience.
I'll show you.
Yeah, no, I think XRP is interesting, you know, and I said this recently on a podcast, and I may be wrong to think of it this way, but you know, when you don't buy a token and or work to generate that token, and it gets dumped on people who are making active investments on it, it just seems like something's wrong. And I know people will say, well, we sell $12 million of Bitcoin a day or something like that miners do, but they're actually making an investment to get that. And when XRP dumps on the XRP army, it just seems, it seems really harsh. Am I directionally incorrect with that, or is that?
No, I think that's right. Look, I literally think, I I believe that Ripple, the software company, which is building software products for banks to make their lives easier, makes a ton of sense. I am not convinced that XRP makes sense as part of that system. And those two things are separate. And I think it's important that people understand the separation of them. And you can have Ripple, the company, the software company where you own equity, succeed, and XRP not be successful. I don't believe that you can have XRP be successful without Ripple, the software company, being successful. Right. That's kind of how I think about it. And so like, I'm not one of these people who just blanket, hey, nothing else has value. Like I try to be somewhat intellectually honest and think critically about the nuances here. And so that's how I break it down is Ripple, the software company, is different than XRP. And I think that the value accrues to Ripple, the software company.
I've got an interesting question for you as you sort through kind of some of the other questions. What is the project or token you're most interested in other than Bitcoin and Ethereum?
Man, are you ready for this?
Hit me with it. Gifto.
Let me make sure I can see Jason's face when I say it. Nah, it's our boy Jack Mahler's.
Oh, interesting.
The strike. So There's a lot of people asking about the Lightning Network. We haven't talked about it at all. I think that Bitcoin is the most binary bet you can make right now in finance. I recently tweeted and said on Wall Street, it's a contrarian bet, but I think it'll become a consensus bet over the next 2 to 4 years. If you ask me inside of the Bitcoin community or inside of crypto, I think the single most important project outside of Bitcoin itself is the Lightning Network because it is that second layer that helps Bitcoin scale and do a lot of things. I think that Jack Mahler's, who we've invested in Zap and in his app Strike, is one of the most thoughtful, best builders in that ecosystem. And if he can accomplish half of what he wants, he will have done more than most to help usher Bitcoin into becoming a global reserve currency.
Isn't he also really good at chess?
Oh, you have a very good memory. He's actually a high school chess champion. That is true.
Yep. That's where I use Strike to feed the chickens.
Yeah. Did you know that Jason does this?
You have chickens?
No, I have access to chickens that I feed remotely through Strike and the Lightning Network.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
I know. Mind blown.
Chickens?
You can check it out at poliofeed.com.
Sounds like
No, for real.
what?
There's a video, there's like a live stream of chickens. And
Yeah, Bluetooth enabled device.
you can go press a button.
And you pay. Yeah, you pay. You pay with some Bitcoin and it drops chicken feed. And I feed, my favorite chickens, Big Black. Shout out Big Black. Keep it real, son. Get money, get paid.
All right, Jason, real quick, before we let everyone go, everyone's asking, I guess you tweeted and said you're going to do a giveaway. What do you want to give away?
No, I already gave it away.
What did you give away?
I probably gave away Bitcoin.
Oh, you gave
I always
away.
give people Bitcoin, but I hadn't done a giveaway in a while, but yeah.
All right. All right, guys, listen, go like the video, that little thumbs up, go smash the shit out of that. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you get notifications in the future when we do these. Maybe we'll do a couple more live streams because these are fun. Second of all, there's 2 sponsors for today, Gemini and BlockFi. BlockFi lets you deposit crypto. You can take a US dollar loan against it, or you can go ahead and earn up to 8.6% APY. They also allow you to buy and sell crypto on their crypto exchange. Gemini is the most trustworthy crypto exchange. They've got a bunch of SOC audits on the security side. Trust is their product. They allow you to buy and sell various cryptocurrencies, started by the Winklevoss twins, who, by the way, Cameron and Tyler are not on here, so I can say this. I think I tweeted this one time. Cameron and Tyler Winklevoss are going to go down as some of the best investors ever in history. I actually think they've got a shot to be one of the first trillionaires in the entire world simply because of a massive bet they made on Bitcoin many, many years ago.
Bro, if my math's not wrong, I mean, if Bitcoin stays right now or $10,000, I think they're worth like 56, like some crazy, I don't even want to say it. It's some crazy number, the crazy number.
What do you think is the amount, based on them owning 1% of the Bitcoin, What does Bitcoin's price have to be for them to be trillionaires?
Well, I at $288,000 Bitcoin, I think that they are worth $56 billion.
So I did the math one time. I forget who I was doing it with. If you own 1% of the network, I think it's like $4.5 million for you to have $1 trillion.
Yeah, we're probably in the same boat, right? I said $288,000 Bitcoin, they are worth $56 billion. So
Yep.
you're saying at $4.5 million Bitcoin, they're worth $1 trillion.
It's crazy.
$1 trillion is such a big number; it's hard to even conceptualize.
That's how the world works, man. I'm down.
Get money, get paid.
All right, guys. Listen, this was a blast. We appreciate you tuning in. Happy Halving Day. We'll do it again later.
Feed the chickens. I need eggs.
PolloFeed.com,
Pollo feed.
Gemini.com, BlockFi.com/Pomp. We'll show you whatever we got. See you guys.